107. And we have some additions to the agenda. I'll let Jacinta speak to this.
9.5, a referral from the town of Stellar regarding land use bylaw amendment under new business. And as well, 9.6 under new business, AEP's mooring policy. And we received a letter from the South Shore Community Group that's been distributed. Both of those items have been distributed.
And
What was the second one you sent it?
it's the mooring policy.
And where was it at?
It's 9.6 under new business.
And then at 2 o'clock, we have Mr. Shorten calling in to discuss the mooring policy.
Where are you gonna be?
At 2 o'clock, he's going to be on.
Would be under business,
He's under delegation.
gentlemen.
Yeah, it's on here.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh,
Yeah, Mr. Denny, you have your camera? We got no. And is there any other?
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart?
I will move the agenda be approved with the additions.
All in favor? It's carried. And now we'll move to minute approval. Over.
I will move the minute. Be approved.
Okay, all in favor? Approved. It's carried. Any business arising from the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the development officers on page 3.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So on our report, the first item was a Zoom meeting with a proposed development. The area that was proposed to be developed was within the Buffalo Lake South Shore IDP area and not identified as a growth area. It was a limited development area. So we would need to do an amendment to the Buffalo Lake IDP in order for that to proceed. So we haven't heard back from the developer whether they want to proceed with that, but at this point, unfortunately, we couldn't process their application. And I guess the rest of the items are very straightforward. And for as far as our development permits, at this time last year, we had processed 18 applications, and we are now at 60. By the end of this month, we just added another one this morning, so we're at 60. And as far as subdivisions, we are slightly behind last year. We had 10 applications by the end of May of 2020, and we're at 6 this year. So that has slowed down somewhat. And we had a subdivision development appeal board meeting on May 20. Well, we received a decision letter on May 12th, and it was regarding application DP 20074 Sharp for the ancillary building at Ocean Sands Heights. So the appeal board approved the application, provided he applies for a development permit for the recreational vehicle and removes the deck that was constructed on top of the ancillary building and the stairs that went up to the deck. That was the outcome of that meeting.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner.
So could you expand a little bit on that? Because if I remember right, he takes this trailer away.
Correct, yes.
And that's part of our issue. You can't have anything there that's permanent.
Well, again, there's a loophole in our bylaw that states the development permit must be obtained for an RV. It doesn't state that it needs to be left on the site. And they do not want to leave their motorhomes for obvious reasons like vandalism, and so they do remove them. so that,
So these freestanding decks that we've had all the complaints about over the years, the reason that, I mean, that's where I came from on that when I made that decision, was that we did not allow a freestanding deck without it being attached to a recreational vehicle.
yes, so he does have to remove the deck that was constructed on top of the shed, as well as the stairway that led up to the, was a viewing deck that they had.
I see, so this will be an auxiliary building to his, so it's not attached, it's not an attached deck.
No,
Okay.
they had, if you recall, they had
Yeah, so I
constructed.
don't remember the place very well, so. Okay, I thought we'd didn't allow an auxiliary building without having something to be auxiliary to, especially in Buffalo View Estates.
And that is correct. So the recreational vehicles will be the primary use, although they will be removed from time to time. But the wording in the bylaw, just development permit needs to be issued for the recreational vehicle. It doesn't state that it needs to be left on the site.
But so it's only a 2-year permit and then he has to build, is that not correct?
No, there's no timeline for construction.
So he can have a mobile home in Buffalo View Estates forever?
A motorhome or recreational vehicle, the current bylaw does allow a 2-year renewal on those permits, yes.
2-year renewal.
Yes, they sell it for 2 years and right now they can renew after 2 years for.
Definitely.
Well, also, it's Kara's last MPC meeting with us. She's going to greener pastures. She's going into the operations department, so we're just going to give her a hard time today. So she's going to be taking on the position of the operations department project administration and health and safety manager. So we congratulate her on her new post over at operations. She won't be in our office. She'll be working out of the public works building.
The dark side.
The dark side, that's right. She'll be transitioning because we do have a lot of things on our plate right now. And so we are accepting applications for the development officer's position. Received a few submissions, so.
Well, thank you, Kara, for overworking our planning department and all that you do.
Enjoy your new position.
Yeah.
Concludes my report, thank you.
Any questions with the report? We need a motion to approve separate information. Mr. Clark? All in favor? Carried. Okay,
Madam Chair, if I could, I'm wondering if we shouldn't revisit that. Because I was under the understanding that it was a 2-year permit and it was, we put some limits. Now, and I'll be honest, I am confused sometimes because there's so many different districts out at the lake.
this one doesn't have that. You can keep renewing after every 2 years on this area. Yes.
All the zoning districts, none of them have a timeline for construction. The only exception to that is scenic sands, where you can only have an RV during the construction of a dwelling, but there isn't a timeline when you need to build your home on the property. There's really no timelines on any of the subdivisions.
When we put that on, I was thinking that it was a situation that the 2 years was the time limit and then they had to build a house or move on. But
You have to renew their permit every 2 years, but that's.
I'm just wondering if we should revisit it and what council or what MPC's thoughts are.
I hate to say this, but I agree with Mr. Nyberg. I think that's what the intent of that was. 2 years. I just had to. So I think we gotta revisit it.
Mr. Silver.
So I was wondering if you denied a renewal, is that appealable, or can you deny a renewal even without changing the bylaws?
sorry, they are discretionary use, so, but it's, can be approved at staff level. So we have been approving. We don't bring those applications to you. So there is a provision in the land use bylaw that we can issue the permit. We do refer them out to adjacent landowners. They have a 21-day appeal period to any discretionary use, as do, any applications that come to you for approval. So that's the process that we've been following for since the bylaw was amended to allow RVs in the subdivision.
I'd say the same thing. It's like that one structure that we have up there's 4 poles, a roof over, and it looks like should be drugged back out. But no, like it makes it an eyesore for everyone else that wishes to put up like a decent buildings. I would like to be able to see we revisit it, make some rules that are going to be all the same.
Well, again, Madam Chair, so if you have a detached deck, the trailer has to stay there, right? How does that, I'm still confused again. You can, once you get the permit for the deck that's attached to the recreational vehicle.
And it was always our understanding that the RV had to remain on the site. But the appeal board ruled that they can remove the motorhomes. They have to apply for a development permit for the recreational vehicles. There is no requirement that it be left on the site. As they mentioned, there are times when they may holiday elsewhere. And in this case, it was just a matter of the vandalism and not wanting to leave the motorhomes unattended at site. But that's,
I think that's what we were trying to avoid. But
Mr. Nixon.
I know it's maybe not the best in all cases, but if we do this for Roshan Sands Estates, which is it
Ocean Sands Heights.
Roshan Sands Heights? And it applies to all the other subdivisions, you're gonna open up a whole new kettle of fish, and which is not gonna be nice to work with, so that's just my opinion. It's a what do you call it? It's something that would have to come to MPC anyway, anytime one of these things came forward, I guess, a deck or something like that, because you'd have to treat them as one-offs, I guess, but I just think it'll create another huge problem.
Mr. Clark.
But back to, Board Member Nyberg's comment, I think it was covered decks, James? Like those high up covered decks is where we started that conversation. A ground level deck, I don't recall saying it had to be connected.
well, you see, and that was where, and maybe that's my confusion, because I remember when we did have a number of complaints, and I know Mr. Gender's talking about that one that was, and I'm with you, it's unpainted, and it's tilted off to the side. It really is an eyesore, honestly. If it was beside me out at the lake, I would be upset about it too, because it's an unkept. And some of them, they're up there that are very nice and they're well maintained and there's nothing wrong with them. But those ones like the one that Mr. Gender's talking about does become an issue for us. And it is tough. I know what Mr. Nixon's saying, but the idea was never to be able to turn it into a campsite, right? The idea was that this was kind of like a temporary situation. You could have it there and move forward. I'm not so sure that's what the intent of people that bought the lots and put up, very, very expensive homes planned on having. But I mean, if we're not getting complaints, not broke, don't fix it, I guess. But I think we are getting complaints.
Mr. Nixon.
The word I was trying to think of is discretionary, so it would automatically come to MPC in a case like that, wouldn't it?
But we can't deny it, Mr. Nixon, because of the simple fact. See, and that's where I'm getting at. What's that?
We can put conditions in, like.
But they could take those conditions to the appeal board as well. What I'm saying is if I want to, when I make the decision and put my hand up and vote for or against something, I want to know that I'm doing it within our rules, and I've said it, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Good policy makes good governance, and in this case, I'm wondering if our policy is offside. Because realistically, anybody comes with a deck now, after that decision, and seems every time we get a subdivision appeal board decision, we have to change something. But it is the test, that is the litmus test of what we're trying to do, so.
Mr. Nixon,
Didn't they, ask if the deck and the stairs be removed?
Yes, that's what I was gonna clarify. That is, they have to remove the deck. It's not, ancillary buildings cannot have the deck attached to it, and that's what the ruling was, that they removed the deck and the stairway.
So hopefully this will take care of some of the complaints.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so are we ready to move on? We do have one person online. So would the planning commission like to move to 6.8? Is that fine with everyone? So we have, on page 98, we have DP 21047, lot 1, block 1, plan 0927451. And that's Hutchler, and page 98. Senator Carroll?
That's fine, thank you. So this application is for discretionary use to install a manufactured home on lot, my computer went down here. So it's to, Jared, would you be able to move down a bit, please? Yeah. It's older than 10 years, therefore is being brought to you for approval. There's a manufactured home older than 10 years is a discretionary use in the agricultural district. The home was manufactured in 1972, and the attached photos indicate that the exterior finish of the home has been upgraded with new siding, windows, and shingles. An existing detached dwelling is proposed to be demolished upon occupancy of the manufactured home. The applicant has submitted a roadside development permit application to Alberta Transportation as the property is adjacent to Highway 12. And there are some photos in your package, just following the application. I'll just bring up the page. Jim, you could put the photos.
Madam Chair? I'd like to move this forward. I know the location they're putting at, it's not any issue whatsoever. It'll be a marked improvement for my area.
So do we look at the siding and the shingles, or is the whole exterior, right?
The exterior of the home, if that's been upgraded in this situation.
I'm not sure if it's the camera or the picture of the shingle, some of them look like the page. I don't
I'm
know.
not sure if that's a camera thing or a shingle thing. So we have a motion on the floor. Discussion, Mr. Gender.
Just kind of wondering, there's a part of that.
The part that shows that it's like the survey, it's within the transportation side. And it's just kind of wondering like why it's like that.
The survey, I'm just not sure. I'll just go back one here. So I'm not sure the question is. It is adjacent to Highway 12. You're probably familiar with the property along the highway. And the applicant is on the line if you have any questions for him. So I'm not.
What are you after, Mr. Gender? I'm not sure.
I guess I'm just kind of wondering, okay, like why their property protrudes into ATs? Is it because of?
It doesn't protrude. When they did the original Highway 12 alignment at the time, I'm not sure if you remember that, but the house that is existing is there, and it was, I think, Wilson's at the time when they first did that, and it never, for whatever reason, they just didn't take the full front width of the property. It's not actually, if you're looking at that, that's still well behind the power line, which is, almost in the middle of it. It was just what the AT took at the time.
Mr. Stillberg.
Yeah, oftentimes too on those existing farmsteads, they did leave those shelter belt trees. If they could, And that's pretty much looks like.
And maybe that's why they did it.
They went around the shelter belt instead of taking out that north row of trees. It looks like to me that they adjusted that a little bit right there to allow the trees to stay.
And it was a full quarter at the time, so I don't know if that made a difference either.
On Highway 21, they went around a brick gate sign,
They went around what?
a brick gate sign thing.
Oh,
So they will make a little bit of adjustments around front yards sometimes.
So any other questions? Okay, and no other questions for Mr. Hedgeler? Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve the mobile home that's older than 10 years. Manufactured home, sorry. All in favor? It's carried. Okay. So we will move on to back to 6.1. It's DP 13062, northeast 363920, west of the 4th Peters, page 27.
thank you, Madam Chair.
The applicant is proposing to develop a campground consisting of 20 recreational vehicle-only stalls on the same site as that which is identified in 69 stalled recreational vehicle and or RV park model park in bylaw 1409-09, the Pheasantback Estates Area Structure Plan. The proposed RV campground will be constructed to a similar layout as that which is proposed for the 69 stall RV park in the conceptual land use plan in bylaw 1409-09, so that if and when the developer wishes to expand the 20 stall campground to its full capacity of 69 stalls and subdivide the campground into a condominium plan RV park, it will conform to bylaw 1409-09 for that purpose. The RV stalls in the campground will be used exclusively by people using the Pheasantback Golf Course across the road on Range Road 20-0. The campground is proposed to be unserviced, and if the developer decides to provide water and sanitary sewer systems to the campground, those will be private systems for which the developer would be solely responsible, similar to the current situation at the Old McDonald's campsite and the River Creek RV Park. The County of Stettler Number 6 will have no requirements or responsibility for any such water or sanitary sewer systems. It is possible that the county could bring municipal water to the property boundary under the rural water strategy, but the county would not be responsible for the private water system on the property. Access to the campground will be from an existing approach on Range Road 20-0. The applicant is requesting that the county consider a way to allow golf carts to be stored outdoors on the northeast of 363920 west of the 4th and to cross Range Road 20-0 to access the Pheasantback Golf Course. Under the Provincial Traffic Safety Act, a golf cart is identified as a prohibited vehicle, and it appears that the county's general traffic bylaw provides that the county may issue a permit subject to conditions in order to operate a vehicle or combination of vehicles in excess of the load limits or size limits, or in contravention of any prohibitions as stated in this or any other county bylaw or order. Further, section 21(1) and 2 states that the county may issue a permit in special cases for the operation of a particular type of vehicle and or a load or the movement of any other class of traffic otherwise prohibited by this bylaw. Prior to issuing a permit for the golf carts crossing Range Road 20-0, the county should require that the applicant demonstrate a satisfactory solution through a report with the recommendations from a transportation engineer licensed to practice in Alberta. Traffic signs identified in condition 5 are required on Range Road 20-0. This application was originally approved by the Municipal Planning Commission in August of 2013 and extended in June 2017. A request for a second extension in 2019 resulted in MPC passing the following motion: that the Development Authority of the County of Stettler advise the applicant that an updated stormwater management plan and an emergency response plan prepared by qualified professionals must be submitted to and accepted by the County of Stettler at no cost to the County of Stettler prior to an extension of DP 13062 being issued. An emergency response plan was submitted to and accepted by the county in February 2020. Concerns related to the stormwater management plan were resolved in May 2021. And I just would like to point out that when the application was originally considered back in
12, 2013, it was referred to Alberta Transportation. Alberta Transportation had no concerns with the traffic impact assessment with the area structure plan. They did issue a roadside development permit in 2012, again in 2013, it's expired now. So we didn't add a condition because I didn't think of it this morning, but we should have Alberta Transportation issue a new roadside development permit.
Updated.
And updated. Mr. Grover.
This one here, I remember it was here. What about environment and the water? That's all good?
That's all been resolved.
That's all been resolved, it's no problem now, and they've allowed for the, environment, give it its blessing, and they're good.
There is a stormwater management fund that we've now accepted, and Alberta Environment and landowner have come to an arrangement.
And they have no problem. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jenner?
Move it, please. Recommendations.
So, question, Mr. Gender, what are we doing? There's a number of situations within this. With your recommendation, is this something that we're going to do the golf carts as a separate, like, through to administration? How are we dealing with the golf carts? Because this was an issue that was brought up. We talked about putting a huge culvert underneath the road that they could drive under, and then there was a number of issues that went with this. And I'm just trying to clarify, Mr. Gender, what you're proposing, if you would, for me.
That's one of the conditions.
It should be, the owners of these golf carts should have insurance on it. Because like being that they're crossing the road, if they are gonna be at fault, they have to have some insurance on it.
Mr. Nixon?
I think condition 12,
But can we put that condition on that? That's what I'm wondering. Like, is it even within our, like, the MPC has a lot of power, I'll give you that, but I'm not so sure it has power to control the traffic act right now for the county of staff.
but the traffic can issue a fine if they don't go through the required permitting process.
But I'm with you and I agree with what you're saying, but this will go back to council, and if council turned down, like, what I'm saying is if council turned down, there was a glitch in the system or something that said they were not going to permit the golf carts, I'm not sure you could put a condition in place that is conditional on another body making a decision. And maybe you can, I guess, and how that works.
Karen, did you have a response?
No,
And I think, Madam Chair, that it does point out in there that the applicant must demonstrate the county's satisfaction to a report from a transportation engineer, a solution satisfactory to the county for moving golf carts. So I think if something can't be worked out, then they'll have to dig a hole or something.
Fair enough.
It also talks about the general traffic bylaw too.
Read that.
She's hidden right behind Jen.
Yeah, I already.
Well, I was just curious about, maybe we should have them enter into a road use agreement and then let the protective services and operations deal with the fact that there would be a section of the road where they would be moving the golf carts back and forth.
Good for everything.
As a road user.
Mr. Grover?
Yeah, that was my theory there, like, are they licensed? When you run across there, somebody runs into one, they run into somebody, what then?
It would have to be signed. And we probably have to do some pretty elaborate signing to begin with so that people understood that all of a sudden there might be a golf cart in front of them. You know, maybe that's something better covered off in a road use agreement.
I would think, because I'm just one that don't like it. I got nothing.
You don't like golf carts, admit it.
Yeah, come on now, golf carts, horses, I don't really care. But they should be so that the county establishment is not liable if there's a crash and burn up there. That's what
I'm agreeing with Mr. Grover again. This is a bad day.
Road use agreements are annual too, right? So if they had to renew them annually, if we had summer where somebody got run over or.
So who would enter into the road use agreement? Explain how it would work.
I think the developer would enter into the road use agreement.
Agreement, with the county of Stellar.
And then they would permit each individual, or how does it work?
Part of the road that they would use, you guys probably would know better, right? Right, there you go. That's exactly what we want. We don't want it, we want the developer to have it. And then it gives them a little onus to, make sure, police their own, make sure that, that they're operating them ethically, so that, because we do renew road use agreements annually, right?
Mr.
So we talked about this at length a number of years back on this particular development, and everything from grade separation, like the culvert under the road, to how do you control both types of vehicles on the surface of the road at that point. We can look at a myriad of different solutions, from a culvert under the road or separation that way, building the road up so you got room to get underneath it. But one of the simplest things to do here may very well be a controlled crosswalk of sorts that's engineered with signalization at that point, so that, it's signed appropriately leading up to it. There's a visible painted crosswalk area for such vehicles. I mean, obviously their engineer will probably want to bring it up specifically, but my head kind of goes towards, we have to physically come up with a situation that will stop traffic one way or the other in a situation like this, so we don't just get freeboard across the road. And personally, I think something along the lines of a crosswalk, lit crosswalk control, there is power there. They can maybe extend their pavement down to the point, or just past the point where the crossing is going to happen, so it'll be well painted, properly lit, and done that way. I, recognizing it's a little bit of money, obviously, and building up the road and putting a culvert underneath it may not be that much difference in money, but it would be a very crosswalk oriented, I think, structure that you'd have to place there. Just food for thought anyways.
Or Clark?
Yeah, just thinking from driving, I haven't driven past there lately, but I think access to that property could be south of where the approach, like the road goes into the golf course itself. So I think even design would make quite a difference, not to go straight across from that road, but to have them have to enter the golf course off the high traffic area, whether they'd be crossing, a pedestrian crossing piece or something there, because the traffic from the south would be pretty slow. There'd be more coming from the pavement. You drove that road. I have drove that road.
And if I may, there is a good opportunity, because that first hill coming up just past the entrance to the south of the golf course, there's an opportunity at that place to use that grade change, possibly to get a separation if you wanted to go under. But if we are looking at a crossing there, we have to ensure sight distance as well. So the whole area is a little bit constrained by the vertical geometry of the road there. That said, I'm sure all that can be engineered into it to make it work. But if you do want to go underneath the road at some point, there's an opportunity to work off of that high point and extend and go underneath it. So
Would that go along with the road use agreement?
I think you're still, if you're going to be on the surface, I think if that's right, you're going to want a road use agreement so that there is some kind of responsibility for how it's going to operate, cost wise and potentially insurance wise. I'm not sure if the insurance will play into it that way. It's not really my thing, but in a perfect world, we have to create a break. We just can't have both types of traffic rolling at will across there without some kind of either separation or device that's going to control the traffic.
I have Mr. Gender next.
So if we have to look at, say, doing an overpass or an underpass there, that should be another condition in here, saying that they should be responsible for that pricing in order to build it. And it's also one, say, like if you can't get insurance on a golf cart, how can we tie that golf cart to the vehicle, the tow vehicle, that they have brought out there so that they are covered at least by insurance. If an accident does happen, we do have a recourse for them.
I think the simplest way is put a culvert underneath and then you don't have any interaction between the two. But at the end of the day, if you do put a crosswalk there, you would have a button that they push and the lights flash and then they go across, preferably. Thank you.
So, Mr. Clerk, you're thinking you're gonna have more traffic off Highway
Off
601?
Off 601, then coming from the south.
Well, I would think my concern, different than yours in that is you'd crest that hill and all of a sudden you'd be on a golf cart. Where at 601, you're turning into what I would consider a slow traffic area because you're either gonna pull into the golf course or you're gonna pull into the campground. So that would be my concern would be cresting the hill from the south, not so much from the north is what I'm.
Well, my thought though was just south of the approach into the golf course, so that you weren't, I think right now they're going right across it.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you, but if we do that, I think the concern for me would be people coming from the south, all of a sudden cresting that hill and going, holy crap, I gotta put the binders on because there's
Just using it as a road, not a road to the golf course.
yeah. That's just my thought. I'm with Mr. Green on this. It's an either or situation. You either put in a lit crosswalk with a push button with flashy markers, or you put it underground. Whichever is cheaper. I don't know if I want to constrain the business to do it. I think they just have to, in the name of safety, they have to do one or the other. And I would be happy with one or the other.
Mr. Green?
So maybe to simplify it a little bit for your decision right here, my head just kind of went to right now they're asking for a campground. There's nothing really in this that says we have to allow golf carts on the road, going back to Yvette's idea of a road use agreement. Right now they're prohibited. So if you leave them prohibited, you allow the campground. If they want to do a road use agreement or a separate agreement, be able to cross the road, maybe we deal with that as a separate item, so we're not holding up the campground itself. I'm not sure how intrinsically hitched these things need to be at this point. Something to consider, right? Right now they're prohibited. If somebody puts a golf cart on the road, you'd have to decide somewhere through our rules that you're going to allow that anyways.
So I think 12 takes care of that.
Yeah, right now it's in the conditions. Mr. Grover?
Yeah, you know what, we got up the lake with golf carts running here, there, quads running here, there. So now if we do that there and this COVID gets over and it's just running back at full force, so now we're gonna have another half a guy or a guy there to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, it's still a matter of it's prohibited, right? So you break the rules, you take your chances, you get hit by a car.
On a long weekend at the
Right.
lake, you might be prohibited to somebody. It's pretty crazy. I don't know, I just certainly put it in culvert when I do the same, it ends all the problem with the county. And I think probably less accidents and stuff like that.
And so we have a motion on the floor to approve it. Did you want to add in the crosswalk or the culverts?
I would like to add in either or, but then like the cost of it is going to be at their expense.
Madam Chair, and I think one thing we have to make sure is that we add in, what's not on here is the Alberta Transportation renewal, which isn't in here. And then also, I think number 12 gives them the opportunity holds them to come back to us for some sort of permit. At that point, we can say either put a crosswalk in or do a road use agreement with the crosswalk or put a culvert underneath. At that point, if they want to start moving golf carts across, then we deal with it then. And I don't think we need to make a mountain out of a molehill on this one. Let's move it forward, like Mr. Green said, and we'll deal with the golf cart issue at a later date. And we can do, at that point, there's 3 options for it. Whatever works.
So we,
12 as it is, so take out culvert, take out crosswalk and just leave it as is written.
But add the AT in.
But add Alberta Transportation.
AT permit, roadside.
Updated roadside permit.
You do have a similar crossing like that at the Drumheller Golf Course underneath the highway down there to get to the back driving range that used to be back there. And it works fairly well to go under and it's not hugely expensive if you decide to go that way.
They let them, that's a business decision they want to make.
so we'll just add in now the Alberta Transportation.
So I know what the motion is. We're just adding on the Alberta Transportation section into this. We're leaving out the culvert, leaving out the crosswalk. That will be a future date. Okay. So the motion, we'll call it all in favor. It's carried. Now we'll move on to 6.2. DP 21005, lot 1A, block 6, plan 1524-49-4, Erickson, page 58.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is proposing to construct an addition, a loft, to the existing 18 by 24 garage on lot 1A, block 6, plan 1524494, within the Roshan Sands Heights subdivision. The applicant is requesting an 18% variance from 16 feet to 19 feet to the maximum height for an ancillary building, as well as a 24% variance to the front yard setback, 19 feet from 25 feet, pursuant to section 23.4B. A maximum variance of 25% of the stated standard may be granted by the Development Authority. The slope grade appears to exceed 15% of the proposed location of the garage. The applicant has engaged Smith Dow Geotechnical Engineers to provide a slope stability assessment report pursuant to section 58.18 of the county's land use bylaw, which states a minimum building setback of 30 meters or 100 feet is required from the crest or bottom of an escarpment slope or any other steep slope where the grade exceeds 15% or is suspected of being unstable. In the sole discretion of the Development Authority, a setback greater than 30 meters is required where the escarpment slope is that of a riverbank, which is higher than 10 meters. Lesser setbacks will be considered only when the Development Authority is satisfied by the submission of a geotechnical engineering study prepared by a qualified professional that a lesser setback is warranted. The property is located at 67 Chokecherry Lane, next to the east boundary of the Roshan Sands Summer Village. The proposed location of the ancillary building is within the front yard of the parcel. Section 23.5 of the county's land use bylaw provides the Municipal Planning Commission the discretion to allow a variance to locate an ancillary building in the front yard of a parcel. So just a side note, this application was originally received back in January of this year, at which time we deemed it incomplete and requested them to have a geotechnical report done, which they have done. And I took the requirements out of that geotechnical report and put them as conditions in this. So just
So
They went ahead, they did the geotechnical and paid for that and got it.
they also,
resolve that.
sorry, and also not that this really is our concern, but they did have a building engineer as well to look at the garage and make sure that it was suitable to build on top of. So they have that as well.
So they've gone through a lot of expense to bring this forward. Mr. Nixon.
I'd like to move this forward, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll call a question. All in favor? Do you have something?
Mr. Grover. Opposed? Okay, sorry, that's you, Ed. So, Mr. Grover is opposed, everyone else is in favor. Um, 6.3, DP 21039, lot 14, block 1, plan 82, 22, 36-4, Purdy, on page 65.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is proposing to develop an addition to an existing detached dwelling with a 51% variance from 10 feet to 4.92 feet to the side yard setback on lot 14 block on the front H222364 within the city of town subdivision at Buffalo Road. A development permit DP 0502 for a covered veranda with a 40% variance from 10 feet to 6 feet was issued in January of 2005. The real property report prepared in March 2021 shows that the enclosed addition is located 4.92 feet from the property boundary, which does not meet the setback requirements of DP 0502 or the current county of Settler land use bylaw. The issuance of a development permit with a 51% variance from 10 feet to 4.92 feet will correct this area and bring the property back into compliance with the land use bylaw. Section 23.4 of the county of Settler land use bylaw gives the municipal planning commission the authority to allow a variance of any rear or side yard setback requirement in order to correct an omission, error, or other defect, or to address site-specific conditions, any of which, in the opinion of the development authority, cause
Unreasonable hardship and would not interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of adjacent parcels of land. Upon review of this application, the County of Stettler identified a concern regarding the soil conditions and general topography of the location. In order to ensure stability of the development conditions 4 and condition 5 have been added related to the submission of a geotechnical slope assessment.
This is the one
Where
with
they built and they gave the report to the builder, and then it was the builder who,
when they built it in 2005, and then when the property was sold just recently, one of the conditions was a compliance certificate and real property report, and that real property report identified that those two parts were boundary.
Mr. Nixon.
I would like to move this forward, Madam Chair.
Question, Mr. Gender?
The distance from the wall or from the property line, is it based on the wall? I'm just kind of wondering, okay, like with the eaves extending over, is there a distance that the eave has to stay away from the property line?
The distance is to the wall, and the eave would extend further than that. The bylaw doesn't speak to the eaves, it only speaks to the wall.
So they could have extended over, and it wouldn't be until the neighboring property would complain about it?
Everybody else?
Because like we did have one, what, 6 months ago that they had built over. And they're kind of deciding on what to really do, whether to cut it off or buy some extra land. So I'm just kind of wondering whether there should be a set distance that the closest that you come with any part of the building to a neighboring property.
We would have to then bylaw to speak to the eaves rather than to the wall. Yeah, it would have to be a bylaw change. Mr. Green?
If I may, part of the geotechnical stuff came from conversation or comment from me. One of the concerns I have when we're this close to the property in that particular environment with the soil types and whatnot is when the guy next door does something, what's the chance he's going to dislodge something in this building because it's too close? In a constructed subdivision like you see here in Stettler, you know, they have shorter setbacks in a lot of cases because we know the conditions that are there. This is all natural topography up there by and large. And then around the building on that side could very well be built. So just wanted to give you the background of that's where my concern comes from. It's not necessarily that this building itself is not fine where it is stability wise, but what happens when the guy next door starts doing something and interferes with it because it's too close.
It's been there for 16 years now, right?
Yeah, like he goes and digs something out within a couple of feet of his property line and, you know, do we have a building moving now because of that, because of how close it is?
Any more discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
to approve. All in favor? Opposed? Mr. Grover and Mr. Clark opposed? And we have Mr. Shorten online. Should we do one more?
One more proposal.
Okay, we'll do 6.4, DP 21041, lot 16, block 2, plan 0620307. And that is page 71.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is proposing to install a recreational vehicle, a 1999 Windsor as a dwelling unit on lot 16, block 2, plan 0620307, within the Roshan Sand Heights subdivision at Buffalo Lake. Pursuant to section 76.4 of the County of Land Use Bylaw, the recreational vehicle shall be no more than 15 years old at the time of applying for development permit as a dwelling unit. If the recreational vehicle is older than 15 years, photographs of the recreational vehicle to be placed on the lot shall be submitted with the development permit application, and the application may be denied or a condition imposed to require upgrading if the condition of the recreational vehicle is not to the satisfaction of the development authority. A discretionary use development permit to use a recreational vehicle as a dwelling unit may be issued only at the time of the permit for a period not exceeding 2 years. The development permit may continue to be reapplied for and reissued upon its expiry indefinitely, each time at the time of the permit for not longer than a 2-year period.
Okay, discussion? Or motions? Did you want to show the picture of it?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve this just to see where things end up.
What page are we on? The
I'm
pictures
at
are,
page 77.
of the pictures, 77, okay, sorry. I just maybe
That's
didn't,
not the picture.
yeah, I didn't go further enough.
Yeah, there's 3 pages of pictures. Mr. Clark.
By the looks of the pictures, it's a very well-kept lot and a well-kept unit too for being in 1999.
Okay, now any discussion? We'll call the question, all in favor? Opposed? Over. Okay, we'll pause right here right now, and we'll move on to our delegation. We have invited Mr. Robert Shorten to come and discuss with us today, and he's from Alberta Environment and Parks, to discuss the Alberta disturbance standard for seasonal docks and mooring structures. We had some questions for him that hopefully he'll be able to explain to us and answer for us. We had a discussion at our Buffalo Lake Management Team meeting and started the discussion there. And from there, we decided we'd bring him in, as we have a lot of people asking questions about the disturbance standard, what they can and can't do, and when. And so we brought him in for this. Welcome, Mr. Shorten.
Thank you, and I had a nice drive today.
Comforts of your office, huh?
Yeah.
Jacinta, did you want to get started on this for? Yeah, so Mr. Shorten, we had some questions that came in from the lake, and wanted to ask you some of these definitions, and wanted to just get a little bit more clear on the disturbance standard. And do you want me to, I don't think he has received it, right? So, no. Okay. So I'm just going to start at the beginning. So they talk about the provincial right-of-way that encircles the entire lakeshore. As per the Blizzard map, page 36, the right-of-way was created in 1985 as part of the Barlby Creek Water Management Project, the purpose of which was to protect the shoreline for a 1 in 100-year flood event. It was considered public land for this purpose only. In fact, a lot of ROW is underwater, And then they said the ROW should not change anything other than categorized of lake shore. So they would like the definition of the waterfront, semi-waterfront, front lot and back lot owners. Because I know
Definitions?
yeah, because I know in our discussions at our Buffalo Lake Management team, you were saying that if you have MR or ER in front, the municipality is considered the semi-waterfront, and then those after that are considered the backlot owners.
Right. Okay, so the disturbance standard was put in place to reduce the red tape of getting everybody's, with all the different applications for dogs around the province. We wanted to eliminate a lot of the applications that were necessary. And so we developed a disturbance standard. If you look at the disturbance standard on our website, it will describe a minimum or a maximum footprint that we would like to see for in front of each waterfront lot. If the people are able to build within that standard and that size, then they do not need another approval from us. They would only need an approval if they wanted to build outside of that standard. That disturbance standard, though, applies to what we're referring to as waterfront or semi-waterfront owners. So in the majority of the province, most cottage lots are either riparian rights, have riparian rights, which means they're older subdivisions which have their lots go directly to the bank. They own to the water. They have riparian rights. That is what we refer to as a waterfront owner. If a person in a newer subdivision that has municipal reserve or ER, but they are still frontage owners, they just have the reserve in front of them. We refer to those people as semi-waterfront owners. The disturbance standard applies to those two categories of people. Backlot owners or any other members of the public do not fall under the disturbance standard. The problem with and so anybody who wants to moor or put a mooring facility on the bed and shore over 14 days that is not subject to the disturbance standard still needs approval from our department. What I was trying to explain in the Buffalo Lake Management Team meeting was that Buffalo Lake provides a little bit of an anomaly to all of this, because technically speaking, because there are two waterfront owners between most lots and the water, they are considered technically by the disturbance standard, they are considered backlot owners. So if we look at Buffalo Lake, we've got a real difference of situation there. We have the summer villages, which have long-term use and long-term practices on allowing dogs to enter their property. But the other subdivisions, most of them are country residential or cottage subdivisions on Buffalo Lake. Some of them have a very narrow strip of public land in front of the municipal reserve. An example of that would be Roshan Sands Heights, where you may have very little public land left at the 100 flood level. But then you also have people, subdivisions like Phoenix Sands, Buffalo Sands, and some of those where the right-of-way, public right-of-way is a lot bigger. And technically, under the disturbance standard, they're all supposed to be treated the same. If I was to be practicing implementing everything according to the new disturbance standard, basically it would mean that in Buffalo Lake, I would have to approve every dock and mooring, this boat lift and so on Buffalo Lake, because the disturbance standard doesn't apply. What I was talking to the Buffalo Lake management team about and getting their input was, if I was able to convince our department that legally or whatever, that we had some leeway to apply some discretion, what I would like to do is apply as much discretion as I can to Buffalo Lake. And in those situations where we're talking about frontage owners with very little public land in front of the reserve, I would like to treat those as semi-waterfront owners and just say you don't need any more approval as long as the county or the municipality is giving you permission. You don't need anything more from us. On the other hand, where there is a significant piece of public land in front of a municipal reserve, I would still have to apply those or treat those lot owners as back lot owners and approve everything. So that's what I was asking for, was their opinion on discretion. I'm still trying to figure out if I have that discretion, but that's how I would like to proceed with it. Does that kind of give you a background?
Yeah, so those with a narrow right of way would be hopefully considered as semi-waterfront owners.
Yes.
And then those with the wider strip would be considered backlot, and they would still have to be approved.
Right.
And that's what you're working on to get that approval?
Yeah, I want to, I mean, I don't know how much of this is mandated by our legislation, which binds us, and how much I have some discretion with. And that's what I'm still trying to find out from my superiors as to how much discretion I have. But I would sure like to minimize the amount of permissions I have to issue in those situations where basically the frontage owners are semi-waterfront owners.
Well, for the backlot owners, would they need approval first from the municipality, from the county, before they went to you?
Yes, so anybody who wants to put or occupy the bed and shore for more than 14 days with a mooring structure requires authorization under the Public Lands Act. What we're saying now, so that raises a number of scenarios. Usually, that person would have to find a vacant portion of frontage that they could occupy. So here's some options. My understanding is that basically we're only approving one dock per lot, unless the lot is wide enough to permit two docks that provide enough buffer to allow proper navigation. But in those situations, we may issue an approval for another dock, but the waterfront owner would need to agree to that. Another option for a backlot owner would be to find a waterfront owner that isn't using their waterfront their allotment. In that case, they would have to have the waterfront owner's approval. And then they would apply to us and we would ask them to build within the disturbance standard. Other than that, most of these applicants are going to be wanting to occupy land that is adjacent probably to municipal reserve. And in those situations, we are requiring the municipality's approval before we would look at authorizing that. That's strictly, I'm told, because access to the dock or the structure needs to be done through the municipal land, including, taking the thing through and launching it and so on. And so that's why we're asking for approval for that. Anything that goes out beyond 30 meters would also require NAV Water's approval, which is a federal legislation.
Yeah, the next, actually, that goes with the next question. It says, for the Buffalo Lake area, where does the boundary of the federal fisheries and oceans jurisdiction commence, and does it include the riparian zone?
Yeah, my understanding from talking to, we listened to a presentation by the NAV Waters people. They're basically saying that if a dock goes out more than 30 meters, they would want to have, they would need an approval from NAV Waters.
30 meters from where though?
Where would you start?
From the shoreline.
Really?
But the shoreline's always moving.
Shoreline is
Yeah, from the legal bank.
What do they consider the legal bank? Is that the high water mark then?
I guess most people would refer to it as the high water mark, but it's not really. The legal bank is the definition where the action of the water is most common and usual to mark a barrier between the lake and the upland. It's the definitions are in the Surveys Act, and it's an Alberta land surveyor that would draw that.
Well, on the low lake years, there's years where there is all kinds of, like you're gonna be 30 meters before you get to the water some years. Like that can stretch a big difference, and depending on what year it is. And Bob, I'm James Nyberg here, and this idea of us having to approve some of them and not approve some of them, I'll be honest, as a municipality, that puts us in kind of a precarious position of having to put in rules when I think it should be you guys that are dealing with this. This is, yeah, I'm not in favor of that having to have our approval, or we'll just rubber stamp everything and just hand it off to you because, yeah, it's not making a whole lot of sense to me.
Well, that's why the disturbance standard went to a pretty broad public input procedure, because we were getting a lot of input, this is my understanding anyway, from our policy people. We were getting a lot of input from all kinds of different municipalities, from counties to summer villages and so on. And we were getting input from across the board, where some municipalities wanted more control and some didn't want anything to do with it. And so we were trying to, through our public input, we were trying to get a balance where everybody was okay with it. So
this just seems like a download to me. Like it honestly does. Like it just seems something that is your guys' responsibility. and in your guys' preview, and you're handing it back to the municipalities, so.
3 times, but
What have we handed back to you?
That we have to make the approval for you to make the approval. To me, that makes no sense for backlot owners.
You're not making an approval. All you're saying is you don't have a problem with them accessing their dock from your municipal reserve.
Well, what, okay, so now,
You're a waterfront owner.
okay, so the backlot owner wants to put it in front of a front lot owner. They make an agreement. Is there any issue of payment involved? Like if I'm a front lot owner and I want to charge a fee to have a lot in front, do you guys have a problem with that? But that same person will still have, the backlot offer will still have to get our permission to have a mooring out there, right?
If he's in front of a private owner,
Yeah,
no.
so we don't have anything to do with that. That's you.
Yes, you are only approving, giving permission for people to access their mooring structures from your municipal reserve, your environmental reserve.
Okay, so for us, that is how much of our lakefront?
So thank
Exactly. So in other words, Bob, what you're saying is we have to give approval to everybody. I know where you're coming from, Bob, but what I'm saying is there's one thing in a policy and then the practicality when the rubber hits the road or the water hits the shore, there's two different things here, right?
Well, what I'm saying to you is that Buffalo Lake, because of the two owners there, is the anomaly. In most of the province and most of the recreational lakes, it's pretty clear. Municipal reserve approval is to the municipality, and that was asked for by a lot of the municipalities.
Right, but what I'm saying in this case, the County of Stettler's case, we are going to have to make approval for you to make an approval. Am I hearing that right?
All you need to do is say, issue a blanket approval. If that's what you want. You want to let me know that you don't have any issue with anybody putting a dock out in front of your municipal property. You tell me that.
And if there's problems, they deal with you, not us, right?
Right.
Mr. Glover?
This just gives you as a municipality the opportunity to have some say about what's going in front of your municipal reserve. And it also gives you an opportunity to plan community docks and where you want them to go if that's what you want to do in the future.
I think this is Councilor Dave Grover. We've had a lot of problems with it, and I don't think 90% of them never call you over it. It always comes back to us, and we take up a lot of time up there at the lake, and that is only 4% of our whole tax base of the county of Stettler. So I like a straightforward thing. The environment up there, we had a development that went flip-flop on us and didn't get developed. The catchment, the water catchment, and then we were told just to pump it into the lake. That's what environment told us. So I don't know. I think as a county of Stettler, with these and backlots and all the rest of it, I think you're gonna have a lot of problems with it. And isn't it not right? I think I was told that by our CEO, he isn't in the room right now. And actually only 6 of them are front lots. For a small percentage.
That would be the farmers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, we have-
agriculture, they're considered front line. And semi waterfront is anybody within the ROW. Mr. Green?
I just wanted to, add something that maybe hasn't been talked about regarding the access through our, I guess it'd be environmental reserves through most of this. Mic's on? I can hear it, yeah. If you're given a blanket approval, you're consenting almost to go ahead and cut down what you want. Because one of the things I think I heard was their ability to retract the docks sections back up onto their property when they're that close to the water. So they have to have access through. And something you may want to consider is, we need to have a little bit of control over what gets cleared down there on their way into the water. If there's a blanket approval,
You just chop trees down.
but if we got on, what do they clear in order to park their stuff or move their stuff through our land? That see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, that's right.
So
Have some kind of oversight on that, whether we give a blanket and don't care, or if we do care specifically. I think it's good that they're giving us the opportunity to weigh in on that, something to think about.
Yeah, that's what Mr. Short was saying. It gives us the opportunity to decide how it gets there.
Because we don't know what's gonna,
If we make the decision not to give any approval, period, how does that affect it? Can you still override us, Bob?
Nope. I would not issue an approval if the county has not issued a consent.
And you're doing the policing, not us.
That's what I'm being told, yeah.
Hip waiters in a boot. Hip waiter in a boat.
The other two issues that you guys probably know about, which are outstanding for me, is the whole issue, and I'm just beginning to look at this, but there may be around the lake some road allowances, registered road allowances that go right to the bank. And I'm not, without looking at them specifically, I don't know how much of a buffer there is. Like, I think there were some road allowances that were not included in the public right of way. And in those cases, then the frontage owner is you guys, which would also apply, need your approval. But the other big issue for me around the lake is the storage of these things. And we've got a policy at this point that does not allow the storage of personal property on the right of way. And my understanding is that most of the counties and summer villages have the same policy. They don't really allow storage of their bird dogs on their municipal reserve, but it's happening anyway. And it's a conundrum for me because it's hard for me to require them to take them back up to their lots when they're saying they don't have any room for their stuff. And I know it's a problem for you guys because they're coming to you and wanting some municipal reserve to store it on. I think the only way we're going to resolve this is to come together and come up with some solution, but that's an outstanding issue for me.
Jacinta here.
Mr. Shorten, it's Jacinta. We have been working with one of the community groups to allow some storage on the ER. Right now, the dogs are basically stored randomly. We are looking at designating areas for storage and having a tag system that links the dog owner so that we have some contact information if it doesn't get removed or, becomes, worn down over time. So that's one of the options that we've been working towards, is to just have some areas designated for that purpose. And we do have within our land use bylaw, public service district, where there is provision for storage of dogs. So we're trying to address that for this upcoming fall. In the past, it has been an issue, and we have another area, Buffalo Lake Meadows has an area designated for storage. Scenic Sands get different, as you know, they have that 70-meter right of way. So it's different in all the different subdivisions at the lake. So.
And our biggest problem, Bob, is when these guys are doing this, we're finding that they're destroying the trees and the flora and fauna that they're wrecking as they're doing it, which we're trying to protect the shoreline with. That's the whole idea behind this. And the other one is liability. If somebody goes in the wintertime and is accessing that public area and hurts themselves on somebody's docking or whatever, in some cases, it's not even docking that they're parking there. It's just some boat lifts, et cetera, that they're parking there. Who is now liable? Who's the guy that gets sued? I mean, right? Typically, it's us, the municipality, because for some reason, everybody likes to sue us. So we need to protect our ratepayers, right?
Yeah,
And not just the ones that are at the lake. We're talking all 5,000.
That 90, the other 96% of the ratepayers.
Yeah. 5,525 or 26, depending on what day it is.
And that's one reason why we started the permit tag system. So we know who, and we're working on where right now. So, and that started last year. So we're.
but if I tell people at Scenic Sands that they can't no longer store their stuff on the right of way, they're gonna be coming to you pretty quick to get an area set aside in your municipal reserve for that.
And I'm okay with it as long as they got insurance to do it. That's all that I care about. And that's what they've even said that to us, that they've had an issue with, well, it costs too much for insurance. Again, that's not my fault. I mean, it costs me a ton of money to have insurance on my farm. I get it. Critter gets out, it's gonna cost me money.
Especially with sheep, because one goes, the others will all go.
Exactly.
And I was counting them when I fell asleep.
And then that's when you get the ditch.
Now, one of the questions here says, would the province be open to a community marina, perhaps in the provincial park of Ocean Sands?
I can't speak for parks.
Okay.
At least, I'm not even sure whether I can or not right now. But certainly our preference as a department is to see more community docks, more marinas and more community docks under an authorized footprint, and rather than a whole bunch of docks going out from everywhere. I think that's the only solution for backlot owners. But what that means is that when a county or a municipality is looking at approving a subdivision, they have to either set aside the storage areas, or they have to provide some kind of a plan going forward for backlot owners. And I know that sometimes that's put on the back burner. We'll say, well, look at it when we need to. But that seems to be the only solution for backlot owners for sure.
Now, with this disturbance standard, does this need to be implemented this year, or can we work on finding solutions that works for municipalities and work with you to get back to you?
I think everybody's already got their dogs in.
Yeah, because when this came out, I think docks and boat lifts went out in April already.
The disturbance standard is in place right now. Its application on Buffalo Lake is what's up in the air for me. If I'm told by our legal people that I don't have a discretion here, then I'm approving every dock that goes out on Buffalo Lake.
You are not, or you are?
I am. With the approval of the waterfront owner.
Mr. Grover?
Yes, I think that we should keep, the county should have some power there to decide when you take these off or what you do with them. And there's other lakes, because you're in the lakes. There's other lakes where they take them off and store them somewhere else, because there's some of them that I've been around in the wintertime, there is none stored there. So how does that work? They have to find a place for them. It's the same as, their boat. Oh, what am I going to do with the boat? Well, there's places that store boats and keep them for the winter.
I think in a lot of places, people take that responsibility on themselves and realize that that's part of their responsibility as an owner. There are some lot owners that don't want to do that. They want to just use public land for it. So,
But they have wheels on them and they wheel them away and store them for the winter. And it's just like, you know, I can't store my farming equipment out on somebody else's land, and that's what they're doing.
That's
Put
right.
them off there, put them away for the winter. I don't know if it's up to the county to have a place, you know, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 worth of lots for them to store their stuff on. I don't know if that's our problem, really, Bob. Thank you.
We don't want to shoot the messenger, Bob, so don't think I know you didn't want to.
We're not picking on you.
We're not picking on you. We're just trying to let you know that we have concerns.
Yeah.
Jacinta, did you have any more? Because I think I've covered here. Did you have any of your own questions?
No, well, I guess the definition was the main thing because a lot of our residents interpreted the policy to read that the semi-waterfront owners were the private lot owners and the waterfront owners was the county or ER. So that's where we're having this required clarification going forward that basically all lot owners are back lot owners if the discretion isn't granted. Is that correct, Bob? Is that basically to sum it up? Is what you just
Yeah, so
implied?
if I'm not given discretion, that's how Buffalo Lake looks, but I'm really hoping I'll get the discretion for some of the communities where the lots are closer to the water.
So, Bob, when will you know if you get discretion?
I'm hoping in a week or two.
Okay, so how does this roll out? Because you're one guy
Yep.
and you've got a lot of areas. So are you gonna, and I was joking about rubber boots and a boat, but are you gonna go out and start talking to these people or what are you doing? Is this gonna be on a
complaint basis at this point?
So these people, if nobody complains, you're not going out anywhere and talking to anybody.
No.
So whether it's discretion or not, yeah.
Well, we do.
No, and I'm with that. I'm okay with that. I don't see the application working very well for Bob if he has to go out and try and get, and I don't know how many lakefront properties will have docks, but there's a bunch.
Oh, there's lots, yep. Sylvan and Gull are gonna be a big issue.
You only work 40 hours a week, so how are you gonna get it done?
Well, what I'm saying is that all of these issues have been sent up to our department. They know what we're dealing with here. I think they're basically not my view is that the government does not want to unduly restrict legitimate use of the lake and access to the lake. We don't want to police every dock and everything else, but it's getting to the point now where we need to have some standards in place so that if somebody gets unruly or somebody starts building stuff that's just out of this world, that we have a policy and a standard that we can stick to. So it's not like we want to go out and police everything, but we want to make sure that people understand that there has to be some consideration for lot owners and for navigation.
So is there a fee on your part if you have to come out and do an inspection or anything like that, or is there fines
fee?
involved? Yeah.
No.
So no fines, no fees, no nothing.
I don't think they're going to be fines. What we'll try to do is negotiate compliance. If somebody gets really upset about it or whatever, then that'll be up to the minister what he does.
I have one more question. Jared, what page is this one?
I don't know.
Because I'm just looking at the map that we have brought up on our screen.
Page one on the.
Oh, it's on page 1 on the fact sheet. And when it describes your semi-waterfront property and your back lot, now they have a road in between the semi-waterfront and the back lot. And so I would think maybe that also encompasses your scenic sands area too. Because they would be adjacent to the ER and the MR, and I know that strip is wider, but the road is behind them when I'm looking at that picture.
Yeah.
'Cause
So
they-
your question is?
So, because what I understood when you were defining semi-waterfront property and backlot, you were going with the narrower strip for, let's say, Roshan
Right,
Sands
yeah.
Heights. But yet, when you look at scenic sands, they have the wider ER and MR, but they still have a road behind them too, according to this picture I'm looking at, this little map. So that
Yeah,
I would use that
I think
definition.
I'm trying to look at Buffalo Lake as the anomaly.
Mhm.
There are places around the province where municipalities have built access roads right along the bank or right along their municipal reserve, right?
Okay.
In those situations, we're calling those backlot owners because there's a roadway in between them and the lake. So there needs to be more review of those applications in terms of access and legal requirements than if you were just had a lot in front. So what we're saying is we're not necessarily going to, sorry about this. We're not necessarily going to not issue approvals in those situations. It's just that we have to review them before we issue the approval. The disturbance standard was put in place so that we don't have to issue an approval if certain conditions are met. Does that make sense? So when it's straightforward, there's a frontage lot, and they own to the water, or there's a frontage lot, and there's municipal reserve, but only municipal reserve. Those are clear-cut issues. We don't have a problem allowing people to build within a disturbance standard on those. Anything beyond that is going to require more of a review of the application before an approval is issued. Does that make sense?
Any other questions?
So Bob, do we have to put something in place before you get approval or wait till you find out whether you're gonna be discretionary or whether you're, I mean,
Well, I'll get back to the county as to the counties, especially through the Buffalo Lake Management Team, and outline to them what discretion I end up having or not having. And based on that, we could come up with an understanding about how those county or municipal approvals would be issued. Each municipality would decide for themselves how they're going to do it. For instance, White Sands will probably go ahead and come up with a mooring policy for their municipality, which will outline how they want to see the mooring in front of their property. And because they have a recreational lease in front of their property, they are allowed to determine what goes on that property. there are other municipalities that could do the same thing if they want to determine for themselves what the mooring policy is in front of their jurisdictions. They can go ahead and use their discretion or their planning processes to do that, and we would work with them to do that. So each municipality can decide for themselves how they want to issue approvals. And if it's just a blanket approval, then I just need to know that. I know someone's just gonna have to tell me that for the county of Stettler, on their frontage, any frontage on the county of Stettler, municipal lands, there's blanket approval for anyone who wants to put out a dock.
And you would deal with any conflicts.
Yep.
Again, sorry, Bob, I hate to throw it on top of you like that, but
Okay. Well, I think I've got these questions answered, and it seems like you guys have got yours answered, and any from our planning departments?
Yeah.
There was, and I'm just trying to section in the policy where there was once the approval is granted by the municipality to become responsible for the dock. I'm just trying to find that in
The county does?
It is somewhere. You
Do
probably.
you become, are you asking, do you become responsible for what?
For the dock, once the municipality issues an approval? to-
No, it's private property of the owner.
Okay, so there's no,
And so
Liability.
insurance and all that is their responsibility.
Okay. That answered your question, okay?
thank you, Bob.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for joining our meeting and answering our questions. Really appreciate it.
All right. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
Yeah, you have a good day. We got about a 5-minute break. We're gonna keep rolling on.
Keep rocking and rolling. Not for me, anyway. By 6, did we do 6.5?
not.
Yeah, that's page 80, so DB 21042, lot 6, block 1, plan 0521511. McHart?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is proposing to develop in addition to an existing detached dwelling and a covered and raised deck with a 50% variance from 10 feet to 5 feet to the side yard setback on lot 6, block 1, plan 0521511 within the Buffalo Lakes Meadows subdivision at Buffalo Lake. Section 23.4 of the county's Stettler land use bylaw gives the municipal planning commission the authority to allow a variance of any rear or side yard setback requirement in order to correct an omission, error, or other defect or to address site-specific conditions, any of which, in the opinion of the development authority, cause unreasonable hardship and would not interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood, or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of adjacent parcels of land. The adjacent landowner has submitted a letter in support of the proposed development.
This is just that little tiny portion that they're adding onto the
Yeah,
deck.
it's funny, it's in the blue, the deck extension.
We'll have Jarrett bring it up. The map. Page 85. There you go. Right down there, that little blue part is what they're adding. Mr. Goldman.
Yeah, it's all, this is good. The neighbor that is beside it now has, no problem with it. And we had that once before, and we just dealt with one but once it's sold, then they have a problem with it, and then it comes back and comes back and comes back. So I'll be voting against the variance. Thank you.
I was just gonna make the motion to move this forward.
Mr. Nyberg.
Can I ask the question? Like, I mean, we don't have a lot of information on this, but you guys did a site visit. So why would he put it on the other side? If this is a covered deck, why couldn't he just put it on the other side and not have any issues whatsoever?
Is this where they're sharing the outdoor kitchen? No. Oh, not that one. No, they're sharing the approach with the adjacent one.
And so there's still 10 feet of, or 5 feet, 10 inches of setback?
Between side. So any other questions or discussions?
We do have a motion on the floor to approve. We'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Mr. Nyberg, what were you?
I'm in favor of it.
So opposed is Mr. Grover and Mr. Clark.
Okay, we'll move on to DP 21045, lot 20A, block 6, plan 1524-49-4, Taylor, page 87.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is proposing to develop an addition to an existing raised deck with a 52% variance from 10 feet to 4.8 feet to the side yard setback on lot 20A, block 6, plan 1524494, within the Goshen Sandpipes Old Golden subdivision of Buffalo Lake.
The property falls within the resort residential district of the County of Stettler Land Use Bylaw. Section 23.4 of the County of Stettler Land Use Bylaw gives the Municipal Planning Commission the authority to allow variance.
Question on this one? Mr. Nixon, do you have your hand up?
I'll move that. Robert?
Some discussion?
Is there a reason, like, typically we get like pictures of what's going on, but we're just getting site plans on both of these, and I mean, by the site plans, information I have in front of me, it doesn't look like there's a big issue, but is there a way that, like, usually we got pictures, didn't we? Pictures are worth 1,000 words to me, and and there may be things that you can't see or can see, and I just wonder if that's an issue that the neighbor doesn't have a problem with this. Did we check with the neighbor?
The neighbor has not been consulted.
Has not been consulted.
Not by us. We usually do that after we decision.
Okay.
I think Karen, you did mention. She did mention that you talked to the neighbor, but we.
Yeah, anything written.
Spoke with his neighbor, but the county has not spoken with him.
No, that's fair. I just wondered if you got.
So everything slashed on this picture is new deck?
Yeah, that's right. There's an extension to the west side and on the front. The front meets all of the setback requirements. It's like 26 feet from the property line. So there's no issue with that. The variance is only for the side.
Okay, so the back part that they proposed too is okay,
That's,
if they stayed with the existing deck.
that's right, yeah.
Okay.
Just along the side. Okay, Mr. Nixon, I have a motion on the floor.
Just-
Mr. Clark?
It's just, you know, we're seeing more, these are very close variances, eh? And for their neighbor, I don't know if their neighbor, you know, it concerns me at 4.4 feet or 4 feet 9 inches, that the neighbor's gonna look at this and not wanna be looking at them sitting on their deck right adjacent. So this is concerning me on these ones that we're doing right now, is that it does affect other people, not just people that are there today, but as board member Grover said before, you know, then the property sells and then we're into the middle of it again.
That's for MPC in the future to deal with, because they're gonna get complaints, because probably council will get complaints because Billy's looking into my backyard now, right?
You're into my backyard.
But I'm on my deck and you give me permission to be here.
Mr. Grover?
But the other thing is they have lots of room here to build on the other side, and they're already gonna build on the other side, they're gonna put a deck. You know, if we let every one of these go 50%, 70%, whatever, then why, we're not even, there's no sense of us being here. Thank you.
Okay, we'll call a question. Mr. Nixon made a motion.
Unfortunately, with Mr. Grover, we're in that position where if you allow one, you kind of have to allow the others. It's hard to turn one down, right? And
Right.
until we get an SDBA decision that changes it, I'm in favor of, and that would have to come from a challenge from one of the neighbors saying that this isn't right.
But to be fair about it, we've already had one with the eave hanging over and he's back and all this stuff.
But
That
that,
again wasn't an SDBA decision and we changed that.
But if we went, you know, if we kept it within the boundaries and within limits, that's what they were put there for. That's what we should follow.
And this is the decks. I mean, when it's a eve, it can be a safety concern for fire and everything else, right?
People are pretty partial to their cedar decks and all the rest of it.
I'm with you.
Okay, we'll call a
Question, all in favor? Opposed? Mr. Clark and Mr. Grover. 6.7, DP 21046, Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 2020, 46-6, box map, page 93.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The applicant is proposing to bring two existing ancillary buildings into compliance on Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 2020466 by applying for a development permit. The two buildings exceed the minimum setback requirements for the agricultural district. Due to the fact that the shop is 1,800 square feet, it becomes a discretionary use permit application as the maximum size of an ancillary building residential is 1,500 square feet. Pursuant to section 43.10B of the county land use bylaws, an ancillary building on a parcel of land in the agricultural district, the maximum ground floor area of a discretionary use ancillary building residential oversized is 3,000 square feet. Just to give you a little background on this, this was originally a full quarter section, and I assume that these two buildings at that time were agricultural purposes and didn't require development permits. But once the acreage is subdivided off and they're no longer agricultural use, they do require a permit. This property is in the middle of being sold, and the new buyers were looking for a compliance certificate. So when we did the research on this compliance certificate, that's when the two buildings were discovered to be non-compliant, and the new owners requested that they be brought in compliance. That's why it's here in front of us.
Mr. Nyberg.
I'm just confused because it's still in the agricultural district. This has never been rezoned, has it?
No, but the use of the building, it's not just the use of the land, it's the use of the building, and neither of them are agricultural uses any longer. One was storage and the other was a shop.
Mr. Clark.
if the person that's moving there still came from a farm though, could they not, would that not still fall in line that they could utilize that shop? Like that's, I know the property and I was phoned by the people that are buying it. And they still have their GST number and everything for their farm. They sell livestock and little.
They could, but at the time the compliance certificate was requested, it's the current owners. So when I asked them what the use of the buildings were, neither one was agricultural, and that's why we couldn't issue the certificates.
Mr. Grover.
This is what, 16.41 acres, so it could actually be a farming operation too.
And Madam Chair, my concern, and I think is same with Mr. Clark, we make the change and then turn around and then this individual who buys it, it turns it into whatever, storage, cold storage or whatever, and then do they have to come back in and change it back? Like, is there a different way of doing this? I'm just wondering.
Well, there's nothing saying that going forward, it can't be used as agricultural purposes again. It's just for me to issue a compliance certificate now with the use being non-agricultural, I couldn't issue it. But if they decide going forward that they want to use it as a farm.
And I agree 100%, but the two buildings in question are now going to be taxable buildings. And that is going to be an issue for this individual. I mean, as a farm individual, your agricultural building is considered to be non-taxable. I hope everybody is fully aware of what's going to happen to this individual coming forward, right? Because what are the size of the two buildings that we're asking to be put in place?
One 1,800 square feet.
So, and not that it's gonna be large amount of money, but there will be a tax consequence to this particular decision.
Right. And the new owners could come back to us and say, you know, hey, this is agricultural use. They're the ones that wanted the compliance certificate. So, you know,
Madam Chair, if I could, who, are you been dealing with them, Rich?
I'm not the prospective buyers, the owners, current owners, right?
So is this something that we should maybe check with them? Because I just hate for us to inadvertently make a decision and end up costing somebody down the road.
Yes. Closing date is June 1st.
We need to make a decision. Okay, Mr. Green.
We can go ahead and make a decision, but maybe they're gonna run a business out of there and then they've done the right thing, right?
Fair enough.
The
Intent from the purchaser not to run a business. You see a lot of horse shelters there. Her intent is to have horses.
We don't have a motion yet, so.
Yes, you do.
I didn't rob the bank before I came.
It's fire truck.
You were late. I don't know. And an alibi.
So Mr. Grover's made the motion to approve. Staff recommendations.
I just have a question on that taxation part. Does that allow the new purchaser to come back in and have it deemed as agriculture again?
Yeah,
At what cost? It's gonna cost
What cost, yeah.
$50?
no, it's because the parcel is over 10 acres.
It's deemed approved for agricultural use, agricultural operation. So technically, it could be used for agricultural use without any permits from the county.
They get their assessment, they can make that statement, and it would be agricultural based on the assessment.
Mr. Clark, you will convey that to the new
Yeah,
purchaser.
they will. Yeah.
Everyone ready? We'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Now we're moving on to subdivision files, so that's 7.1. Subdivision 2021-05, lot 2, block 1, plan 0827-92-5. And that is page 105. All set.
Okay, Madam Chair. So the applicant
Applicant is proposing to subdivide an approximately 43-acre farmstead parcel from Lot 2, Block 1, Plan 092-7925. An 80-acre parcel from the northwest of 1241-17 was consolidated with the southwest of 1241-17 in 2009 to create a 240-acre parcel. The applicant is proposing to include the portion of the Coulee Bank and the Big Knife Creek within the farmstead parcel. The contribution to the Rural Development Fund will be required for the additional area exceeding the preferred maximum size of 10 acres pursuant to section 4.6D2 of the Municipal Development Plan. Pursuant to PD policy, land dedication for future road widening will be required along the west boundary of Range Road 17-1. Alberta Environment and Parks has inquired whether the county would consider requiring the landowner of the land dedicate land for environmental reserve along the Big Knife Creek. Section 664(1) of the Municipal Government Act states a subdivision authority may require the owner of a parcel of land that is subject of a proposed subdivision to provide part of that parcel of land as environmental reserve. If it consists of a swamp, a gully, ravine, coulee, or natural drainage course. Or B, land that is subject to flooding or is in the opinion of the subdivision authority unstable, or a strip of land not less than 6 meters in width, abutting the bed and shore of any body of water. Section 1.1 of the Municipal Government Act states a subdivision authority may require land to be provided as environmental reserve only for one or more of the following purposes: to preserve the natural features of land referred to in subsection 1A, B, or C, where in the opinion of the subdivision authority, those features should be preserved. So, as mentioned, the subdivision authority has the discretion to require environmental reserve be dedicated. We could, in order to have it, the land dedicated and registered as environmental reserve, they would have to survey the parcel. It may be acceptable descriptive plan, which would be less costly than actually like a real survey plan where they put in the posts. It's just described. That would be less expensive for the landowner. Or
What would it cost you to
could,
survey that?
I think it would be, it's a fairly large area, so county could. Environment and Parks did indicate that we could take the ER if it's deemed to be beneficial. And I was hoping the landowner would join us today, but I did, I just.
Mr. Nixon and Ms. Grover.
I'll make a motion that, that we approve this subdivision and not ask for the, ER.
Mr. Grover.
My question was, and so it's over the 10 acres, they're gonna pay us, they pay the $1,000 an acre, right?
Yes.
The road going into it, the access to this new parcel that we're cutting out of here, we put that this house section or whatever, the 200 and some acres together, because was it not access or has it got good access to it? Who went and looked at this?
We were at the site. There is a good access to the farmstead. But as you can see at the top of the map on page 109,
Yep.
the road allowance does deviate from the road allowance there.
Mhm.
So that should be corrected. We are taking the road for road
But the road to
widening.
the north is good?
Yeah, it was, well, it's, I don't know, we didn't drive right up, yeah, it's all developed up past. And it does go back into the road allowance after it, just the north portion, it does go back into, within the road allowance boundaries.
But the road itself was what I'm worried about.
It was good when we were, I mean, it's very, I don't know, hilly, I guess it's hilly and quite, I don't know, Wayne would probably be more familiar with the, actually, it's very hilly and there's a lot of.
You're good?
Yeah, it's not a, it's a good enough road, but it's a local road, I guess you'd call it. I don't know what you.
Not a collector road? Or a cheerleader road?
I would say, but it does go down into like a little cooler valley.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Green would know how.
No problem, as long as we don't have to, as this guy's roughly the same age as me, I went to school with him. But at the end of the day, when they're done, there'll maybe be kids down there with a school bus, so it's school bus accessible. Yeah.
It is, I mean, it's maintained year round. It's not like a seasonal road at any
Where's access to the other quarter, rest of the remainder quarter?
down.
Oh, because this is the half section, that's right.
It is a half section, 80 acres from the north was consolidated. So really the road, this map isn't correct. There is no boundary at the north. Showing that black line, that isn't actually a boundary. It does go into.
Yeah, I know, I read that.
Was there still access to both pieces, both other parcels? Because the creek's gonna cut it in two, right?
No, that one.
Not really.
Have Ernie and then.
Oh, I'm going in memory. I keep trying to.
I've moved cows out of here before, though I know there's access.
So Ernie?
The only part I kind of question is, say like where the road exists now, it swerves back into the quarter section. And from what I can understand from it on the west side of that, that would be quite a coulee. That we should be asking for more road dedication where it bends that other 16 feet, just to go around the bend so that we can actually, if the road has to be built, that we do have access to better location than what, because if not, we're gonna be squeezing that road right to the bank.
I know somebody that can move the bank.
Mr. Nixon?
This, the subdivision, original subdivision was quite a few years ago now, and the two brothers, that's why we split the quarter section. 80 acres went to one brother and 40 to the other. So that happened, I don't know, several years ago. I don't recall how many, but quite a few. And then, so that's why it's a quarter and a half sort of a thing.
Okay, Mr. Clark?
Okay, it's just, I was just gonna ask, Mr. Nixon, like that is that a bridge on, like, isn't that a rock crossing or a?
It's that low level crossing.
It's a low level crossing on that road too. That road would take an awful lot of work, but I don't ever see it going through anywhere.
No, and it doesn't. That's, I have a problem with that too. There's a very scenic area, but I don't think there's going to be a rush for development in there.
Primary access, no, north, so correct?
Yeah, from the north.
So,
Yeah.
We do not have a motion on the floor.
Yes.
Did you? Okay.
Well, I wanted to remove the dedication for ER.
Yeah.
And allowance within the right of way. Right now it does deviate on the north part. If you look at the sketch, it does show that it deviates from the actual surface of the road.
I don't think we can do much with the road,
No.
honestly, just by the topography in through there.
but you're moving the right of way to the road, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, I imagine it's dedicated, isn't it, already to the Feather Road? I don't know if it is or not, but I assume it is.
So you're saying just keep it along the yellow dotted line?
You're gonna break the road?
There's a little triangle version that you can see there if you zoom in. That little triangle where the road allowance kind of deviates and zigzags, but the road is between the original road allowance and that little deviation. So maybe we could talk to them and have them add that into the road dedication. And that would put the road in the road allowance instead of on private property.
Basically, take right away from where the road is.
Where it is now?
Yeah, probably give them a little better peace of mind as well, because that way they don't have it on their private property.
So you okay with that, Mr. Nixon?
Sure.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. I'm not sure what you want to do here.
Giving them the dedication of where the road is now with the curve in it rather than where the line's going straight. So they won't have to worry about that road coming into their private property,
So we're gonna take that land from them?
that little tiny part, but then we give them the other side too then, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we'd have to close the road in order to,
Yeah, I'm not so sure we can do that.
private land, we'd have to close that section off the road, because it is registered road now. Or that would entail,
So leave that.
I think the simplest thing here is to just take the road dedication straight on. If we have to build a road, that's the cost of building that road going straight up there. If it takes onto the bank, it takes onto the bank. It is what it is.
Because nothing's gonna change for a long time.
Yeah.
So if we just took road dedication.
And as the youngest member of this board, I think that it'll be long past my expiry date, until something will happen.
You're now pretty chicken.
Hey, now, I heard that, Mr. Grover.
Mr. Jenner?
I'm just kind of wondering, how do you direct with the roadway that juts into the quarter section? Is there going to be ample land dedication that you could build a proper road on there?
No, not with the features of the land there with the creek and things like that. Bottom line is, the way it is right now, they're probably within their rights to fence off the road and keep people from driving through there, which may be of interest because there is primary access from the north. And we've been maintaining the access largely from the north to that property where the house is. You know, I would think that functions largely as the back road going to the south, no, through that to the Big Knife Creek. What we do have is, they can prevent people from driving between there if they want to by controlling that road that's on their property. Whether or not that's an issue for you is entirely up to you, but the road likely is there because it has to be there. There's only kind of one way to get around there on high ground.
So
I guess, what are the two black lines? Am I not seeing road allowance there? Do we not already have registered road allowance on their property?
But the road doesn't follow the road allowance.
Where the road jumps out to the right there, as it goes through the low level crossing and back up again, that's off of the actual government road allowance there. So the general theory would be to correct that as part of the normal widening that we do, so that the physical road is within the actual road right of way.
I would think that this individual wants to get this done in with a timely fashion, but you're looking at 2 years to close the road. I'm just letting you know. You have to get, and you would have to get minister's approval.
And they're not talking about closing the road. What they're talking about is when they take the dedication off of that side of the road allowance to follow that bend onto the subdivided parcel, so the road then is inside of a road allowance, not outside of it.
What happens to everything to the left side?
That's on a different parcel. Can't do anything with that right now unless that guy wants to be in.
No, I'm talking, so we follow the road. So what you're saying is taking the yellow line and following the road. I get that. Now, we do that, but everything from the road to there's got to be what, how many acres? Because that's the yellow line is the property line, right?
And there'd be no reason to close that portion through the bottom there that's all full of trees. Nobody's getting anything through there anyways. The road.
No, and I realize that, but what I'm saying is, so we take the little bulb, right? And everything on the left side of the bulb to the regular road, to the property line, there's gotta be, I don't know, 4 or 5 acres there. Do we take that from them too?
Well, it's already in the road allowance, no?
No, that road allowance is nowhere near what the road is. You've got two different, this is a
We're talking about
confusing one.
Yeah, the triangle, the road's not in, the bridge is actually on private land.
Yeah, so that stuff that's to the west of the road allowance, that's on a different parcel, different owner maybe, I don't know. We're talking about the side where the yellow line is on the, what is that, the east side of the road allowance?
Triangle. Here's talking about the triangle.
I'm ready? Oh, I'm gonna wait till you're done talking.
Boundary there and it jumps out there, so why change?
Oh, you're gonna be done talking.
This would come out around there. Like this yellow line would just bump up like an elbow around where the road is.
Yeah, but we're not intending to do that. We're leaving it straight. But if we
That's
do
the
that, then,
conversation.
yeah, exactly. That's what we're trying to
Right-
get
right
direction
now-
on,
Right now, they could, if I can look at the thing up here to get clarity of what I'm looking at. Right now, if all we're taking is a widening here, there is a road allowance out there that we could cancel, if that's what you're talking about. We take this yellow line and come around where the road actually is, and this piece could be returned to the parcel.
But close a road allowance, it's taken 2 years. That piece that you just,
That's a road plan, not an original road line. Canceling a road plan, I think, is a lot easier.
So we.
I don't think so.
That road, the road the way it is, it's right away, is it, where it curves out there?
Right now, this piece of
Last time
road
we
right
did it
here
was
is on private property.
But is it a dedicated road though?
No,
It's not.
It's a physical road that is on private property.
Okay.
Because it should have been built out here where the right of way was.
Okay.
public road. It's not private. It's public.
But it's on private property, is what I'm saying.
On private property and
Right? So they could in theory, fence
I don't
it
know.
off and keep people from driving through.
that's exactly right. And we already have 2 of them in my area. Thank you very
So
much.
then it comes down to how you want to deal with that particular issue in this particular spot.
Okay, I'm gonna talk. Okay. We have, I have 2 of these in my area and they cause a lot of problems. I think we should, that little, where it goes out into the property, should make them dedicate that to that road so that we have access through it. We have one there, and when a different guy bought it, then the guy to the north rented a quarter that he wanted to rent, and he closed it off. So then that guy had to go 8 miles around to go, yes, he did have access from the north, but was just stupid. He farms a quarter here and then he had to go way out and around 8 miles to get back to the other side. If we take that, we have lots of Weimars right full of them, where they are veered out into the fields and stuff like that. Yes, we still own where the road should go, and we also own where the snake trails go. And I think that piece going in there, we should own it because it has that low, that crossing in it. And it'll stop a lot of problems down the road. Because if we have one that's down there by me, and the only way to build that is to go across the slough that's 16 feet deep. How expensive is that? This other one, it sort of follows the curve of the land. And if you have to come straight off that bank down there, you're talking a lot of dollars to get that.
So what Mr. Gender said earlier, could we just take that section and widen it for, Mr. Nixon? From the yellow line to the bulb, how much distance are we talking actually there?
On there for a while, so I don't recall.
What I'm saying is just take that section, leave it straight on the top, leave it straight on the bottom, just basically come out here,
Take a section.
just take this.
But what I'm saying is, we've got
And that
lots,
fixes the problem.
Yeah.
My concern is, I don't know how much land is in here. Are we stealing from this guy?
Well, we can return the old road plan to him that's not being used.
Yeah, but again,
To do that, we still have to have the.
what I'm saying is, if you just take,
I don't think you have to
that 66 feet,
Yeah, we
With
do.
the road plan, what you do, the grid roads, not a road plan.
The road plan in Nevis at Content Bridge was a road plan that was built in 1921. It was a goat trail and there hadn't been anything on it. And it took us, I think, 2.5 years to get it closed. And they never did put the pathing anyways, but that's,
I haven't seen.
but this one here, if you just went 66 feet and went and took that road out, that would be the simplest thing. Then you can go ahead and use them, man. Who cares? But, and leave the other one going straight through. Because we got thousands of them in the county instead. Thank you.
But if we had that land and had the agreement with the owner, would it be an issue if it did take a year or 2 years to close it? That other part that we're never gonna use.
you'd never be able to get a clear title. That would be the problem. I mean, I think that's what they're doing here, right? Is they're trying to get title on it. But it would be a process, and and the only reason is because it would be at registries that it would take that time. That's the only thing.
Mr. Grover.
Well, the one I was talking about, that one that's right beside me down there, that caused a lot of problems, a lot of hardship for the guys that were farming on the other side. And this guy down here, he was just being an ass. That's actually what happened. And all we had to do at that time was just take the road.
So if we took the little bulb out, like just made that part a little bit bigger for the time being.
You could do, but you only have to take
And then give them back the road allowance at a different time. That way we could start that application. I don't know.
Sure. Anyway, you can get it so that I want to have access through there is all. Because you never know who's going to farm up down the road. Okay, thank you.
Right.
If we can make a friendly amendment, Wayne, that we widen that little section of road out there.
That we allow the dedication around there. I would go with that, yeah.
So everybody's aware, we'll just make it wider where that bulb is. Perfect.
Let's hope.
Jared, can you change that on there by pictures?
You're good with that.
Yeah, as long as.
Map guy.
We got a map, guys. Just so we can physically see what.
The area?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I don't even know where I'm looking.
I think Rich does.
You're in the
any
county,
idea, Rich, what that's, are we talking an acre?
Not even, it wouldn't even be a tenth of an acre, that little.
Okay, then that's not a big deal. Then they're not losing anything and we're protecting our backside.
And we'll be able to give them back the canceled road plan that's out farther that there isn't a road on.
Yes, yes.
So
Even if he wants.
It's on the wrong side of the road.
No, but Rick says there's
no,
another,
there's one on that side goes farther into the.
If you look at real close in there.
There is lines you can see right here and here. That's, yeah, we don't want it.
No.
We don't need it.
I'm pretty sure they would go for that.
So your motion says take out the ER and you expand the road to curve around with the natural road that's in there now.
You better hurry and vote on
Okay, the dedication.
keep it, the yellow line from top to bottom, just make it wider right at the ball. That's what I understand.
Oh, right.
Well, Les just said follow the ball. You're gonna keep it straight plus at this.
You're gonna maintain 15 meters from center around that where it deviates off the road lines.
Okay.
I just don't want to, I don't want to parcelize that, because if we do that, then I don't want
This here to become private property. If we just take it here, here, and here, just make a whole triangle and take that and add it to this and this. It's not gonna cost them any more to survey it, won't be a big deal. My concern is you lose, we've got a number of parcels that, out there that this little area becomes no man's land. It's cut off by our road on one side and their road on the other. To keep it clean, basically put a sticky note over that, and that's now ours.
But I don't think we can do that. That'd be up to him and who his neighbor is, I
What's
think.
that?
No, if we ask for dedication, if we ask that as dedication, that's what it is.
What it is, I guess.
The road allowance. We'll just have a super wide portion of road allowance there. That's all we would have.
Your east boundary is gonna follow 15 meters off of the existing road center,
Yeah.
all the way around there and encapsulate everything therein.
Yeah, and the west boundary stays straight up and down.
Well, I'm good with that. He may want a little compensation for something like a tenth of an acre or whatever.
That's why we give them back the road plan that looks like it's out front.
Exactly.
Mr. Ford?
It's just, I was gonna say, if you look at that plan, he'd be receiving back a lot more, land he's using already, but a lot more land back, so. I think he'd be reading, if he can get this through, he'd be quite happy.
Look like bush.
So Marlene, you got it all? Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor with the amendments? It's carried.
That wasn't easy.
It ain't a bad hour.
Now we have the Water Act, Alberta Water Act approval, Southwest 30 and Southeast 30, 3816 West 4th. And that's page 111. So Jacinta?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have posted this notice as required by the Water Act on our website and as well in our front entrance, and it's being brought to you just for review, and make you aware of the approval that was issued by Alberta Environment and Parks for the water surface water management system on the southwest of 30 and the southeast of 30, 3816 west of the Forest.
Mr. Goldberg?
I'll receive it for information.
Call the question, all in favor? It's carried. So 9.2 is a referral for Palliser Regional Municipal Services, Northeast 32, 33, 14 West 4th. And that's my 13.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So this is just a referral notice. We are adjacent to the proposed parcel of a 10.63 acre parcel on the northeast of 3314, which is just east of Scapa. Any comments are required by June 6th.
Mr. Stolberg?
Yeah.
Right.
I would like to make a motion that we contact Palliser Regional Municipal Services and let them know that we have no objections or concerns.
Mr. Gender?
His property is 1.5 miles away from our boundary. Is it required? Other than anything within a mile?
What is the referral rate right away for municipalities is?
Well, we don't have an IDP with them that
Oh, okay.
so, but they can refer anything to us, like they're not, there's no cut. Like when an IDP, they define like growth areas and boundaries where there's a referral area, but we don't have that IDP with them for this area.
So if there was an IDP, what would they be?
That's something that you would determine when you're drafting up the IDP, what areas you want to use as your referral area.
So just be neighborly that we send it to.
So we have a motion on the floor, we'll call question, all in favor? It's carried.
What is our referral for everybody else though?
We refer. My, or we just boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah, the word is in the.
Yeah, and in the IDPs, like with Paint Earth, we have what is the
IDP, yeah.
referral, isn't it?
I think it's a mile and a half or.
I thought it was more than that even. It was 2 miles because there was that's not big.
We have the IDPs, we can certainly look it up.
Okay, now we're going on to 9.3, complaint, unsightly premises, lot 21, block 1, plan 9924620, con, page 123.
Thank you, Madam
Chairman. So we have received a letter of concern regarding a potential public safety hazard located at 9 Pony Drive, Ocean Sands. That should be Ocean Sands Estates. A deck constructed on a 10-foot basement without a safety rail has been present on the property for several years. The adjacent landowner is concerned a deteriorated structure will collapse and slide into the nearby pasture land. Section 71(2) of the county's land use bylaw stipulates in all land use districts, no person shall keep or permit to be kept in any yard as may be specified below. Any object or chattel which, in the opinion of the development authority, is unsafe, unsightly, or tends to adversely affect the amenities of the district. Section 37.1 of the land use bylaw states that if the development authority, a peace officer, or a bylaw enforcement officer finds that a development, land use, or use of a building or structure is in contravention of or not in conformity with the land use bylaw, the Municipal Government Act, subdivision development regulations, a development permit, or a subdivision approval, the development authority may, by written order pursuant to Municipal Government Act, direct the owner, the person in possession of the land or building, or the person responsible for the contravention, or any or all of them to stop the development or use of the land or building or structure in whole or in part as directed by the order. Demolish, remove, or replace the development, use, building, or structure, or carry out other actions required by the order, so that the development or use of the land or building or structure is remediate to comply with the land use district, the Municipal Government Act, subdivision development regulation, a development permit, or a subdivision approval, and in such order establish a time for compliance with such order acting reasonably. So the remedy the situation, we have the letter that was submitted and some photos of the structure.
If somebody knows that there's a tree growing, did they trespass to see it?
Well, did the development authority find any safety issues?
We did not go right onto the site. We didn't ask for permission, but we did take the photo from the roadway. Page 120.
Is that a communication tower? Is it a used one?
And as far as,
That's on county land, I believe, isn't it, that tower?
Oh, it's ways back. It's just a.
It's on 99%.
or could be on the farmland that's adjacent to it, the remainder of the.
Madam Chair, I don't know, what is our concern with it? It's not, really not an unsightly present. For the most part, it doesn't look unsightly from the pictures I'm seeing. I mean, yeah, his yard could be cleaned up, but there's a number of those that are out there. Its safety issue is if you're not trespassing, I don't think you'll get hurt. Should we ask them to put up no trespassing signs?
Did refer the caller to Alberta Health Services for a public inspector, and they diverted them back to the county. So, yeah, I had tried to, just because of the public safety concerns that were brought forward, so we had.
How far is the pasture away?
The pasture is just a, I don't think it's side, there should be several pictures. Yeah, so if you look at the next picture, there's that pasture is, this is, how many acres is this parcel? It's not a big parcel. So the pasture would be immediately adjacent to the property here. Like what you see is kind of the neighbor's property. Like we don't have the exact distance, I'm sorry, it's, but it's within.
Mr. Rex, you have a question?
Yes, through the administration, thank you. Is the house occupied?
It appears to be abandoned, but it's still privately owned and, so.
I think this is the one where something was happened a few years ago and because the man's wife had cancer, we delayed a decision or something like that.
Did we not make them put siding on it? It seems to me.
I don't
that
know.
Siding.
Got it.
Here is.
That is,
There was a software issue for this property several years ago where it was unsightly and it was unsided, and so then the siding got it into compliance with the software.
so just to answer Wayne's question, Mr. Nixon, so that property you're referring to is not this one, it is in that area, but it would be on the opposite side of the, of the road, just on that one corner.
Mr. Jenner?
State said it was built in a styrofoam block basement. I don't find any problems with any basements like that. They're not going to just float away on it. For her to be concerned that the building's going to collapse and fall into her in her pasture, I find that there's no real basis on it. Other than say like it just being unsightly, like it looks like there may be some wormwood on there. If it is that, we could just maybe ask them to just maybe clean up the property and maybe have a second look at her.
When you look at the county map, you can't see it on the picture. If you look at the
Satellite view, the fence is right at the bottom of the little ravine or hill going down at the bottom. And then that tower is not on his property, it's further south. So our development authority did not find any safety issues. And
Go on to the property, investigate whether the deck has collapsed into the foundation. There, at one point from, just then this is just from, there was a deck that was constructed and no side rail was put in, and now that deck has collapsed. So,
and on the other side of the house, right?
where you see the windows, there was a deck at one time. It was just never completed.
Mr. Jenner?
Are we collecting taxes on this property?
Let's move forward. I'd like to receive this for information.
Chair, I have one question. Is this on, as part of the subdivision? Or is this on county land, farmland?
Divide a parcel within the Ocean Sands Estates.
Mr. Butler?
If we're made aware of like no deck on there, the deck's falling into the thing, it's come in front of us, and we don't do anything about it, do we have a legal obligation if somebody?
You're on there and you fall through that deck, I would say that you're trespassing.
And that's $150.
We could ask them to put up signs. I don't know.
We dealt with one before.
But that was an unsightly situation. I don't see, I'm sorry, but I have a hard time seeing this as an unsightly premise. Maybe the pictures aren't.
Well, the deck has fallen into the thing.
I can't see that the deck's fallen into there, and I mean, if you can see that, I'm thinking that you are in.
Well, we were told that, I was going by what information I had.
Right, and I get that, but I mean, again, if you know that the deck's fallen in, it's probably because you're in a position that you shouldn't be. I'm strong on property rights, and I think that person deserves it just as much. If it was unsightly and it was ugly to look at, I'm on it, because that is something that you can do, but this, I'm a little leery, because this opens up a can of worms that you all of a sudden, we're now the construction authority for everybody out there.
Next.
I think one thing we pursued and, or should pursue, and Mr. Gender mentioned it, is that the wormwood there, if it is wormwood, I think that should be dealt with for sure.
And Mr. Clark.
I guess the only thing being too is back to the discussion of this other house that we did deal with. Part of that was a safety concern too, which people would have been trespassing. There was
But it was an unsightly premise.
there was a visible aspect of it, but also there was the physical aspect of it too.
Barriers
Yeah.
around, so they couldn't climb up to, or we had to put up, no, we didn't, we had to.
Mr. Gender?
That was on before.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Stewart.
No, I was just gonna say that there's lots of times we run into abandoned properties or houses or businesses or whatever, and we make them board the windows shut so kids don't crawl through the windows or whatever and play. So this would be kind of similar. Maybe they should put some kind of a top back on that deck if it's all fallen in. They don't have to.
But you would have to physically go through the house. You would have to trespass to get onto that deck or climb up on top of something to get in there. Like that, I can see if it's a pitfall that you're walking along and you fall in, but you would have to physically bring a ladder or something to get into this deck. I don't know. Madam Chair, I will withdraw my motion, but.
We have one suggestion of the wormwood.
I'm just wondering if it would be possible, could or should we be sending a letter to them that there has been a concern brought before us? Say like with an unsightly premises, unsafe, and say like for the possible like tidying it up, say like for the grounds area.
What is unsightly there?
More myself, it's more the wormwood that if it is wormwood.
Then the motion should be that we send it to have it inspected by our Ag Service Board. I mean, from what I'm looking at, that could be scrub brush or it could be wormwood. I don't know, but I think that then you would have to send this to the Ag Service Board to do and nowhere in the list of stuff that we got from a complaint did we do that. I think you're kind of.
I'm just saying that we have there's been a raise.
Everybody, I mean, if that's it, then you're gonna have, I mean, you can start using that as a weapon of people running around saying you got wormwood on your property, you got wormwood on your property. And then they send us a letter and then we're gonna hire 3 new guys in the weed inspection program. I don't know, if you wanna go down that path, fill your boots. We have to have a criteria of what is unsightly. And at this point, I can live with this particular property. It doesn't look to me like it is that ugly. I could point you out 5 other properties in an area that would be higher on my list.
Last summer, we had a couple properties up at Buffalo Meadows that we had to go in and have it mowed. Either they mow it or we would mow it. And it's the same thing here. Just to give them a kind of a heads up.
And if that's what you want to do, there again, that's what you would have to.
The letter that came to us is strictly talking about safety. So not saying unsightly, it says safety and danger.
Am I misconstruing this though? If this was a deck that was ground level deck, then I would be in favor of this. But physically, to get to this deck, from the pictures I'm seeing, you have to physically go through the house or get a ladder to get up into here. There's no stairways up to this deck, is there?
No, not that we can.
So I don't know, the safety concern seems to me, if you're gonna put yourself in peril, you have to do a lot of work, and included break into this gentleman's house to get into a position where it would be a safety concern. There's no broken windows. For the most part, yeah, there's some tall grass, if that's what we want to tell them. I don't know what you would say is what has to be mowed and what doesn't. In this particular property, I would question their landscaping techniques, but again, not my monkey, not my circus. I mean, maybe the guy's maybe he's a tree hugger and he doesn't want to mow the grass. I mean, whatever, that's his choice. There is no, I mean, I can't see lawn on this property, but I mean, I'm kind of, it also doesn't have a driveway. So do we tell him he has to put in a gravel pad? I don't know.
Where do you want to take our power?
Mr. Jenner,
I'll make a motion that we just receive it for information.
fine with that?
Madam Chair, if I, just a suggestion, I think this, one of these pictures should be entered into the county photo contest.
I think we'll stay with the original motion. Mr. Grover?
I'm voting.
Okay. So, we'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Now, we've got 9.4. Unauthorized development complaint, lot 16, block 1, plan 0525691, Patterson 127.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
A complaint has been filed with the county regarding a commercial or industrial operation on lot 16, block 1, plan 0525691, 4 Kirtley Way, Carlisle Estates. A development permit was issued on April 29, 2019 to provide for the construction of a detached dwelling and a 1,500 square foot ancillary building on the subject property. A site inspection on May 18, 2021 indicated the dwelling and ancillary building have not been constructed on the property. Multiple vehicles and equipment were present. We have photos. 71.2 of the county's land use bylaw states that in all land use districts, no person shall keep or permit to be kept in any yard, as may be specified below, any object or chattel which, in the opinion of the development authority, is unsafe, unsightly, or tend to adversely affect the amenities of the district. This includes, but is not limited to, a partly or wholly dismantled, wrecked, or dilapidated motor vehicle, and any excavation, stockpiling, or storage of materials, explosives, flammable liquids, toxic chemicals, and diesel fuel and gasoline products, unless it is suitably housed or screened to the satisfaction of the development authority. Also, it constitutes the outdoors storage of construction materials and equipment without a valid development permit for a proposed development that is to be constructed on the land, and if such a development permit does exist, beyond the period which, in the opinion of the development authority, is necessary for the completion of the particular stage of construction work. Section 37(1) of the land use bylaw states that if the development authority, a peace officer, or a bylaw enforcement officer finds that a development, land use, or use of a building or structure is in contravention of or not in conformity with the land use bylaw, the Municipal Government Act, the Subdivision Development Regulations, a development permit, or a subdivision approval, the development authority may, by written order pursuant to the Municipal Government Act, direct the owner, the person in possession of the land or building, or the person responsible for the contravention, or any or all of them, to stop the development or use of the land or building or structure in whole or in part as directed by the order, demolish, remove, or replace the development, use, structure, or carry out other actions required by the order so that development or use of the land or building or structure is remedied to comply with the land use bylaw, the Municipal Government Act, the Subdivision Development Regulation, a development permit, or subdivision approval, and as such order establish a timeline for compliance with such order acting reasonably. So again, we're seeking direction from Municipal Planning Commission on how to proceed.
Mr. Nyberg?
So do you want to start with a stop work order, or do you want to just send him a letter to clean up his crap and get things in order?
We're asking how you want us to.
Let's write him a letter to clean up his crap and put it in place, and if it doesn't, that it will, and we'll give him till the end of July or beginning of July. What's your guys' flavor? End of June. Okay, 1st of July. Let's make sure if that's fair with everybody. That gives him a month. There's not a lot of crap here, but he needs to clean up his crap. And his development permit has expired.
When did I say it's issued? It's just below here.
2019 May.
Yeah, so it had to be started within 1 and completed within 2. So yes, it has expired.
Okay, so he needs to get back in here and reapply if he wants that done. Okay,
Mr. Clark.
He is the resident right adjacent to this property though, isn't he?
No, he lives in town
Does
here.
he live in town?
Yeah,
And he's
lives-
got construction, but that stuff doesn't move.
Yeah, I assume he, probably whatever he needs for that day,
Yeah.
it's coming and going out of there.
he's using it, this is a second lot, he's gonna build a house and needs to explain what he's doing, because if he put up the shop in his garage, he could put his junk up behind a fence, that'd be a different story, but he's pissing the neighbors off. This, to me, is an unsightly premise.
So, motion is for a letter to be sent to move the stuff off by the end of June, or July 1st. Okay,
The first,
That holiday, do they have any argument?
you want June 30th or?
You've got till July 1st.
we'll enforce on 2023.
Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. So now we'll go to the additions, which is here. It's the Town of Stellar referral, right?
Yes.
So it's your paper copy for that, probably.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
from a planning point of view, this actually is probably a good transition property to what we're doing there, right? Because we got mixed business and then into what would be considered a what is it, D2 or D3 development, right?
Are you talking the towns?
Yeah.
So this is for the,
See,
yes,
And so that makes a pretty good transition from a development planning standpoint, correct? It's not like it's not high-end residential, this is considered to be multi-lot subdivision, but units too, right?
yeah, and so, just probably back up a bit to their area structure plan had to be amended to provide for these, there's two parts to it. And so they didn't have the definition of a group use facility. So it's a blended use, as you mentioned, and that's, it's within the IDP for sure, but it's, not within that boundary outside. Basically, it's just, referred to us for comments, but,
There's not much we can do with it anyway.
there's no land use designated for, within that we need to amend the IDP. It's just the area structure plan that needed to be amended. And that's town's area structure plan, not,
This is basically just a courtesy copy to us and saying this is what they're doing.
So we just need to send them a letter back saying that we have no objections.
We could do what they do and don't send us a letter back and then they're waiting and waiting and waiting. But Madam Chair, I'll make the motion that we sent back a letter stating that we have no real objections to them changing their area structure plan.
Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Now, 9.6, we already covered that with Mr. Shorten. The letter, we read out those questions, the foreign policy, so we already got that covered. So we'll go into 10.1. Oh, sorry.
Mayor, can I just, just some of the requests that they had presented, maybe we should discuss that. They requested that we ignore, I just highlighted what, they ignore the right of way for the mooring policy. So that's something that we need to maybe discuss at a future date, whether the county wants to. I think they're just making some proposals, I guess, if you want to consider them later, as far as the county taking the.
Would this be better suited in a brought up in
Get a hold.
community whole work by the council? anything that we would make here would be a recommendation to council anyways, and I would say that that would make sense to do a committee of the whole with this and then bring that to council, correct?
I just wanted to point out, there was some proposals that they had brought forward for MPC to consider, and
Yeah, because I was thinking about their questions that they had for AEP, but yeah, there's some in here for us. So yeah, we could bring that forward to committee of the whole. Mr. Nixon?
Just through to administration there, does any of the proposals contradict the new mooring policy?
well, I think what they were looking mostly for, as we were, was a clarification on whether the county needs to grant approvals for all docks on the lake, and so they just suggesting that actually AEP delay the implementation, but as Mr. Shorten indicated that it was already in effect, so he was just looking for some discretion on whether he needed to obtain approval for all the lots, or the docks, or just the backlot owners. I guess at the end of the day, it's AEP that does make that decision. So we can propose what we want, but it's not our legislation, so. But that's just, they were hoping that they could have some time to work with the communities and possibly have the municipality, as they did in White Sands, get that lease back the right of way so that the county would have to, but then again, that would mean a lot more just approvals from the county for every dock that's installed on the lakefront there. So I guess there could be benefits to that, but there could be also more, and we could probably draft up some type of approval process where we would obtain approval and have the contact information, something like what we're going to be doing for the docks once they're stored on the ER. Probably something like that, but it's downloading again to the municipality, I guess is what that may be, what council decides in the future is the best way to do this, rather than do, through the province.
Well, personally, I'd be inclined to give blanket approval, providing the people follow the conditions set out in the new mooring policy and dump it back in their lap again.
Don't damage our DER. Some way of not damaging, to get the docks into the water, and that's what Mr. Green was mentioning. How did they get those docks into water without doing any damage to the ER? I guess that's what our only concern would be.
And the storage as well is another issue, but as far as the use of the docks, I guess.
But they can use the ER. ER is public land. Anybody can walk, right?
Yeah,
They
so
can't store something on.
So the environment would be the ones that would be affected, I guess, or.
Keeping you up.
Would have the control, I guess, if they damage the ER, cut a tree down or left rust.
Well, it'd still be us.
That's all the
Yeah,
rust
still
they
us.
have in, so.
Mr. Broker?
Yeah, no, I don't know. It's gonna come fall back on our shoulders anyhow, and if we just give it to them, it'll be a gone, whatever. I don't know. The storage and the knocking trees down and stuff. I don't know, I don't like, Shorten is, oh, well, yeah, just do it, whatever, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we get all the stuff will come back to the county standard to deal with it, and I think if we have the ability to look after it, we look after it. We're gonna have to look after it anyhow. That's my personal opinion.
And the disturbance then, let's say in there that you can't damage.
Well, they're gonna damage trees, do whatever, just give them a blanket thing.
Okay, so we'll bring this back to a committee.
Me as a whole would be a good place for it to go, yes.
We need a motion for that, or just write that in?
I'll make that motion. We move on. Bring it back to a committee as a whole.
We'll call call the question, all in favor of committee of the whole, bringing this there.
Bring it to the council.
In favor of committee wall? You're both.
And Mr. Nixon, and you are in favor. Okay, so Mr. Nixon's opposed. Buffalo Sands community signage, page 135.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, the Buffalo Sands Community Association requested permission to install a 9x9 community welcome sign on the county's public utility lot at the entrance to the Buffalo Sands subdivision. A hand sketch drawing of the sign was submitted with the request. The Municipal Planning Commission approved the proposed location of the sign on the public utility lot at the January 27, 2021 meeting. The commission requested a condition be added to the development permit requiring a community association representative consult with the Public Works Department to review the final sign drawing prior to installing the signage. A site tour on May 18th indicated that the signage has been partially installed on the subject land prior to consultation with the Public Works and Operations Department. Additional information regarding the sign design and footings were submitted on May 20th, 2021 by the Buffalo Sands Community Association President as per the attached photo and following information. So their 6x6 posts are set in 12-inch augured holes to a depth of between 4 to 5 feet with 4 bags of concrete per hole. The bottom of the sign is pressure treated by plywood with a stacked stone veneer instead of the river rock, and the front will have an aluminum message board on the front. The overall height and width are approximately the same as the drawing, so 9x9. Administration is just seeking direction from the Municipal Planning Commission on moving forward with this project. You can tell on the following picture, on the following page rather, the photo of the signage that's been installed to date. And so we just, and then the drawing that was submitted, that they did not provide any further drawings. This was a drawing that was submitted originally.
So, were you able to talk to them since you saw the sign out there? Is either you or Rick or?
I know, we just drove by and saw that it was partially developed or installed. So I just contacted the Public Works to see if they were informed of the signage and
The community association putting it in.
yes.
Rick, you're happy with it? Why are you happy with it? Tell us what you're happy.
Well, they were supposed to contact us first, and had they done that, they'd have been asked for engineered drawings for it because it's a non-standard sign. So we don't know if the members that it's constructed with, the fastener types or anything like that are gonna withstand wind loadings and not fall on a toddler running around out there. Things like this, when they're non-standard, really should be run through a structural engineer for that particular reason.
The next question I was gonna ask you, Rick, is like the location where they put this sign, is it where you would have recommended it? Like, let's say, like, they say that these posts are in the ground 4 to 5 feet, we have no means on checking whether they are that or not, so like, I find that they definitely need a note stating to them that they were not in compliant with our recommendations, and like, I'm behind you, Rick, on that one.
You know, my feeling is that, you know, the number one, they should fence it so nobody gets anywhere near where it could fall, because we don't know anything about it. I mean, for all I know, it's 2-inch screws holding the thing together, right? You just don't know. So, and until, you know, it should, in my mind, come out and get a proper set of drawings, proper foundation design done, however they're gonna do it. You know, if they're putting something up that's a standard sign, like they'll put on the highways or something, there's standard drawings already for those things with the square footage of the signs for wind loadings and everything. Something like this, it's individual. You gotta do an individual design.
Mr. Grover?
What about the upkeep on this association that put this thing up is going to have an do the upkeep on it?
Presumably.
5 years old and, wind comes up, blows it over. Another thing is, but, so they put cement in the holes, didn't put cement in the holes? How do we know?
Well, you can see it sort of at the top of the holes like you would a fence post, but you got no idea of real depth.
No, yes, any idea.
I can't certify something like that anyways. It's not my area of expertise, but I know enough to know what needs to be done and who they should be talking to, and they don't appear to have done that.
What's the answer to who's gonna maintenance this thing?
Dave Grover.
I think the community association is supposed to maintain it.
Well, that's what I'd like to see in their agreement or whatever.
Yeah, and they were supposed to do it 30 feet back from the sign and the edge of the road, and it's not.
Love it.
But
They've done a bunch of work. It's by volunteers. So I'm looking for an easy solution so that,
Well, we could rent a chainsaw for him.
And that's something I told Yvette at the time when this came up. If you guys want to make that decision, that's entirely up to you, how you mitigate risk and whatnot for the county, but, I can't get involved in it. So.
They were informed though before they ever started that they were,
We had a meeting up there in February, I think it was.
when,
It was in the conditions.
That's what we did, site tour.
No, I mean, when we approved it, the conditions, everything was in the conditions. And they received their permit.
So they're not following any of the rules. So would we, and I realize they're volunteers, but if a community association put up a curling rink, would we let them get away with, and I know that seems like a very strong difference, but if they did it and they didn't follow the rules, would we allow it if it put us at risk? Unfortunately, there are zeros in the real world, and you may not get one at school, but when you get out in the real world, when you do something wrong, you have to redo it. I'm sorry, but I'm of the opinion, unless they can prove to us, and it's not even in the right place. I feel for these guys, but they're not listening. Like, if you built your building too close to the road, you would have to move it.
Miscommunication, because when they did, I contacted them, they just thought they were good to go with everything. So they just thought it was, because they had just indicated when we were there where they were putting it, but no measurement or no survey pins were located to determine the actual boundary of the PU. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's the situation we're in now.
Mr. Gender.
The other thing I find also, like, we try to go with mowers that we can get this done as effectively as what we can on the numbering and then send up some hand cutters. The distance that they have between the power pole and the sign is not adequate enough for a lawnmower to drive through. So there's gonna be some more handwork there.
Mr. Green, where were you thinking of putting the sign?
We hadn't actually got that far with them. We had talked about sort of behind the power pole, what did they say, 30 feet?
Yeah, 30. And a triangle, if you look on the drawing, maybe the drawing's not in there, but when you originally approved it back in January, the drawing had a 30 kind of, and it's, it's a typical drawing that volunteers would do on a napkin.
there's no site plan.
Yeah, well, they had site plan with the original application, but yeah, it's not quite where it should be. But, it is volunteers, but unfortunately that's a county MR that they've got it stuck on. We used to have a big sign going into Buffalo Sands, but it was basically on Donnie Lynn's land, I think. It wasn't on county land. The garbage truck's full in there. When the composting bin is available, it goes in there, so it is a busy spot.
I thought we got rid of the compost.
They're full of metal right now.
I was just thinking, so why doesn't the county go and say, we realize it's volunteers, we appreciate that. But we also want to make sure it's safe, and I'm sure they do too. And maybe we can, or maybe they can be able to save some of this, but still pick it up and move it to the appropriate spot and sit down with our public works and figure out the correct spot. And just for the safety of everyone. So.
Yeah, if that's what council wants, I'm fine with that. I mean, we have to tell you what's obvious and what's not in compliance, and you guys decide how you want to handle it. We're good either way.
We do appreciate volunteers out there, and but we realize there has to be safety involved too, and placement too. For example, for mowing the lawns and stuff.
Well, not only that, I mean, you've got an area that can get fairly busy with people dumping their sewage tanks and stuff down there in an intersection. And if they're all gonna be parked there, or a bunch of vehicles parked there, looking at a sign to see detail on it, that's really not the best place for that. You think you'd want it back a little bit more where they can not pull over on the main road and not block sight distance.
They put it there close so you can see it. That's what they did.
We didn't get that far into exactly where things are going. I talked to them, but when I did talk to them in February on our site meeting, I did tell them specifically that we'd be looking for something in the way of a design on that.
So we talked to him since you've seen it, or did this just come to?
This is the first I've seen of it since we had that chat in February.
No one's talked to him, so we don't know if there any more work's been done.
To talk to him, and we told him to stop work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because it wasn't, they weren't in compliance, and that we had to bring it to council to get further direction, or MPC.
Mr. Jenner.
I guess I'll ask Mr. Green, could you live with it? Or?
The only thing I can live with, that, I can take any responsibility for is location. And I'm not exactly happy with that. I mean, it is back a fair ways, but we're encouraging people to pretty much stop in front of it if they want to stop and go look at it. There's a whole area out there of parking and other access. Maybe it needs to go back, and maybe they need to do some gravel around it so you can pull up to it. A lot of these things haven't been discussed because they haven't talked to us. But if all we're doing is pulling over to the side of the road, leaving our car there and walking over there, we've, on the Sunday afternoon when a bunch of people are pulling trailers out of there and using the sandy dump, I can't speak to the structure of the sign or the installation or anything.
Could you get a engineered certificate of this after the fact? Like, I mean, it would be god awful expensive, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we did bigger scale, but the walls up at Buffalo View Estates, if you recall, we had to do a forensic geotechnical on that after the fact. That involved digging down. I mean, I think less important of, personally how far in the ground it is whether or not those posts are gonna hold stuff up with the wind loadings that we get around here. Are the posts sized correctly? I don't know. Does there need to be 4 or 6 of them? Don't know.
That is a big sale.
And brutal winds around here too. Like I've had seen stuff blow over and blow off that I've never seen blow over before.
Look at the ones that the highway went, right?
Yeah.
You go out here and on Highway 56 north, I seen those ones that were knocked down, and it was like, oh, they built them now that are meant to do that. But
Mr. Grover.
I'll make the motion to move it, to build it properly.
who pays for it?
They do. They're the ones who put it in the wrong place. And they get a hold of our Public Works, Mr. Green there, and they do it properly the next time. That'll be part of my motion.
Is that in the development permit? Because they applied for a development permit, right?
Yes. But
Can we bring up the development permit? Is that possible?
we're just waiting for the final drawings.
We haven't given them approval on the development permit?
No.
No,
This is why we would charge somebody $1,000 for starting development without having a permit in place.
If I may,
I'm not in favor of charging them $1,000.
No, I'm not.
Do that, but I am in favor of moving it, having it put properly where it's supposed to be, with our Public Works foreman on side with where it's going. And in the ground, the right length or the right depth, cemented properly, so that it doesn't fall over and take some big kid and his bicycle out.
I'm more worried about myself when I'm staring at it.
I'm not worried about you at all.
Thank you.
Hey, we've been getting along so good.
Well, I guess you got two subjects here to deal with. I know Yvette would like to see an easy solution to this. So if you're okay yourselves as a group with the location, they could probably get some work done on it to deal with the structural parts of it. So if you got kind of two decisions to make. Are you going to make them do it properly and get it certified? That could be a lot less money than tearing it all out and moving it to a completely new location, if you're okay with where it is. And you're right, I mean, it is kind of tight, powerful and things like that, but you know, we are talking money of a community association at that point, so that's what I'm encouraging you to balance out, right?
My motion was to take it out of there and redo it in the proper place where you want. That's my motion. If we want to vote it down, that's fine.
Mr. Judge?
The only way that we'll really know like how deep it is in the ground is if we can get a receipt where what they have purchased, what is sticking above ground. Hopefully the rest is in the ground.
Or you dig down beside it and confirm.
Are those 6x6s? Are they four? It's hard by the pictures for me to tell.
It says 6x6.
I built my 6-foot fence out of 6x6s. That's a little taller than that.
Anybody thought if they would break? I don't know. 6x6, you know, if you had another brace on it to just help mitigate something, I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking down the road, maybe not this year, maybe not 10 years from now, but wood posts in a concrete filled hole have a tendency to rot at the top of the concrete. So when that thing comes down, he's going to be standing there. Right? I would rather, and I haven't seen the footing yet, but I'd rather see concrete with a metal retainer on it so that that connection is manageable. But
Mr. Clark?
Also too, when you look at the diagrams and the design, they show support on that top beam where they're gonna hang their sign with the wrought iron brackets, which they built the sign totally different unless than what that drawing had come in as, so. I don't know what how they've connected that to, like Rick said, it could just be screws in.
They could put the wrought iron afterwards, right?
Yeah, they could, but they have the overhang across the top now,
Oh,
yeah. Versus butting in.
You know, and unfortunately, it shouldn't be our responsibility when somebody else.
It's on our MR though.
I know, no, but what I'm saying is, here we are struggling with making a decision because we don't want to burn on a volunteer, and I totally get that, but at the same time, they did it wrong. I'm sorry, I mean, I'm having a hard time with this. And I'm with Mr. Green. And anytime you put something in sand, I don't care. I put a lot of posts in, they're pretty loose after 2 or 3 years, especially of this and this and this and this and this.
Well, we had some signs this spring, 6 feet in the ground? And 3 pretty torquey boys pulled them right out, posts and all, so. You know, frost left the ground, they got loose, up they come.
Were they in my area?
Oh, yeah.
They were looking for, what's wrong with that? They were just looking for some garage yards.
I thought maybe they took a chainsaw to him. No, they.
So Mr. Grover has a.
Has a motion
I have a motion on the floor
to consult with Public Works.
And consult with our public works foreman.
And they can always bring it back to us if they have a different, if they want to bring it back to council, they can bring it back to council.
They can bring it back to council if they want to, but I would like to see it properly constructed so that we don't have this problem down the road. Thank you.
Please convey our concerns, right?
Yeah, should add, there were also a request for assistance with the funding of the sign, but we didn't actually get the total cost from the association, so that was something that they had also brought forward back in when it was being discussed.
Was there not a discussion too about having our sign fellows did the first call and everything, when we talked to them. The first time because they were putting it on our property.
You did do the first call.
They
You
did
could
do-
see the flags and
They did do the first call, yeah.
Gas line flags right close to the sign.
Maybe that's why they put it there.
Very close.
Okay.
So when we gave them permission, did it say that they needed to come and, it told them that they need to come and talk to them?
They had consultation with our staff before then they just went ahead and put it.
They were supposed to come and consult with us before they did the actual construction, based on what I sent ahead in that notice of decision information.
But they just misunderstood.
final design, drawing with the,
So it was just a misunderstanding. They thought it was
thought it was,
for permits. Yeah.
Madam Chair, do we have a motion?
Yes, we do. To move it and consult with.
With Public Works. Right, Ms. Grover, to move it?
Well, that's what they had the meeting with Public Works to discuss that, and then they went ahead and just set it up.
You can pull out the condition and list it in the letter.
What's that?
You can pull out the condition and list it in the letter. Yeah.
A motion.
Madam Chair?
Okay.
I just wonder if we shouldn't reconsider the motion and ask that, because we have concerns, that we ask them to meet with our engineer and discuss options. I don't know what you think of that, Mr. Grover, but I mean,
Find out where volunteers stand.
just.
Madam Chair, the problem I have with that is the fact that we're throwing Mr. Green under the bus because then he becomes the jerk of this whole situation. We, as a council or as an MPC, has made the decision that we don't agree with, at least we haven't yet, but if
We
that's the
don't know
case,
until we vote.
we're going forward with this.
But we can list our concerns.
I know, but and Mr. Nixon, all due respect, you're throwing Rick under the bus.
He's already
Said that he doesn't like it.
And you're good with throwing him under the bus?
Unless he is going down my house, dragging past gravel, I don't want him under the bus.
No, I wouldn't want to do that. No, I just think it's,
You're making him the bad guy when we're the ones making the decision.
We're making
If we make the decision that they gotta move it, if not, well, they can continue on. I hear you. I hate to see volunteers ever slighted, but they also haphazardly did this, and I'm sorry, but you can't. If it was anywhere else, I mean, if you did that in Erskine, it probably wouldn't be a big deal, right? Because, I mean, there isn't gonna be 1,000 people seeing it.
They put those signs up in Erskine. We were told to stay away from them, that we couldn't plant any trees around them. Like, I mean, we had the riot act read to us.
And they are engineered steel signs.
They're beautiful, yeah.
Cut out with,
A plastic cutter, yeah.
absolutely, no wind to catch.
No. But yeah, they were very particular when those signs went in and,
And we did first call and we
yeah.
did.
We had the riot act read to us, yeah.
This was provincial, right? Because it's along the provincial highway.
our local avenue.
Volunteers. Oh, I just wanted provincial highways.
They went above and beyond when they put those signs in Erskine. I mean, they're gorgeous.
Okay. So we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Nixon and Neitz. Okay, in camera, we need a motion to go in camera. Your gender.
I was looking at Larry because he had his hand up, so.
Well, I saw side of my eyes. Obviously.
Yeah, she just went
All
like
in
this.
favor? It's carried.
Anybody you don't want in here in camera?